Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Good evening.
Good evening. Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right, happy post Thanksgiving,
Yes.
or Thanksgiving weekend, rather. I guess it would be considered that. How's everybody doing? Tonight we're going to be playing with the GBS C AIO, and we're joined by two of the, not so much creators of the GBSC firmware, but like the people who have created this version. It's an all-in-one unit that you can buy. Soon. I'm not sure if it's it'll be readily available soon or.
So yeah, we're hoping before the end of the year that we can start taking orders.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we're not the only people behind it. Obviously, Rama is responsible for the GBS control firmware and all the other people before Rama that were working on it. Also, Tinker Plunk is responsible for designing the board layout, but he couldn't make it tonight. So,
right.
Yeah, for people who don't really know what it is we're streaming with today, this is kind of a recent development with an older device. If people remember, years ago we did a video called Frame Meister Alternatives, like right around the time the OSSC was just coming out, and there was this one thing called the GBS A200, which is it's a scaler that does VGA output, and they were mostly, correct me if I'm wrong, like the target audit market was like arcade operators or something like that. But
yeah, that's correct.
Just a really
who wanted to use flat screens, probably put flat screens in their
in their arcade machines.
Yeah, so it's like a $15 scaler or something like that. It wasn't anything amazing, but like for the price, it was probably still better than most
you could take a
Amazon.
you could take a low grade operator for an arcade site or an arcade route, and they could replace a busted CRT monitor with a VGA output, and a flat screen panel display. And it was probably good for them at the time, but like overall, the GBS in that configuration is not that great. It's got some lag. It doesn't handle some things properly. It just doesn't look.
A lot of people would buy several add-ons for it, like a sync strike and like a scan line generator, to sort of make it more palatable. But like, especially with like interlaced stuff, like it would look pretty smudgy. And then like 240p stuff would be treated, if I remember correctly, it would be treated kind of like interlaced, where once you see, it looks really sharp when the screen's not scrolling, but when the screen scrolls, then you have that sort of that smooth edged thing that comes from that. So that was the original state of this, but like people started
so the GBS control project came out, and that is a firmware for it that's actually kind of injected each time the device turns on with basically an Arduino. And and that firmware is a much better firmware for the TrueView chip scaler that's on that GBS board. And once it has this good firmware in it, like, wow, the difference in what you can do with it is crazy.
Yeah.
And not only that, like, it can do certain things that other devices can't really do, which is interesting. I mean, kind of one of the key ones is downscaling. You can get something that's above 240p and make it 240p. But I think another thing that's just so interesting is it's got this motion adaptive deinterlacing, and that's what I was playing around with on a little earlier. And it's what'd you say? Is it like 20 frames or something of lag, or did
20 frames?
Or do we not have measurements on that? I forget.
So it's less than a frame of lag in its motion, deinterlation.
Less than a frame with motion adaptive.
Yes.
Which is crazy. Like, I mean, I would have to record some direct comparisons to really look at them side by side, but from from what I saw, it was as good as motion adaptive deinterlacing really gets. And like, that's at
the price point, it's amazing,
which is up till now kind of been the best thing, I guess.
What has, like, in terms of deinterlacing, I guess, like, I mean, the FrameMeister has very good deinterlacing, but it was expensive before, and now it's really expensive.
At the price point for
laughing at me for saying 20 frames. I units of measure, don't expect units of measure, the correct one, to ever fall out of my mouth. I'll say, 12-foot sub and stuff like that. Okay. I meant 20 frames.
I
meant 20 milliseconds. Sorry.
It's probably less than 20 milliseconds, especially when you add the clock mod to it. You're looking at sub 1 frame.
It would definitely be less than 20. So
and really,
other thing is, you mentioned that it was 480p down, or for downscaling, and that's 480p downscaling. So it's not 1080p downscaling or anything like that. And just wanted to throw that. There's a lot of use cases when we add the AI. So basically, you have this GBS scaler with basically an Arduino that's injecting new firmware to it. And then we added what was called the AIO board, or what we call that. And we call that the all-in-one board. And that basically adds a sync strike to it. It adds an RGB kill switch. It adds a resistor that can be toggled in for correct component video output. And the sync strike is also toggleable, so you can turn it on and off. And so we kind of, we have this all-in-one unit now where you can hook up SCART to it. You can hook up component video. You can hook up VGA video. You can output HDMI video. We have an HDMI adapter on the board. And then you can also output VGA, or you could output component video from it. And there are some caveats to how all of this work. I think the important thing for people to realize, this is not a reference quality scaler. If you think you're going to get reference quality video out of it, the answer is probably no. Now, will you get really nice, good-looking video that can do a lot of interesting things like the motion deinterlacing or, fast resolution switching between 480i and 480p, or I'm sorry, 480i and 240p? Yeah. There's a lot of neat little bells and whistles to this type of a setup.
Yeah, there's cool use cases for it that, even when you have all of these scalers, like I feel like it's the first thing that's come around in a while that's like, oh, this does something that my other devices don't really do. Especially that's why Corey's got Die Hard Arcade loaded up here, because for some reason this game, even though it's a 240p game, has some sort of either resolution switch or just some sort of signal interruption between every single screen in the game. And you can't play it on any other scaler that I'm aware of, other than like those cheap ones you find on Amazon. But the difference is those, those aren't treating 240p correctly, and they have a lot of lag. Now, I do think like the GBS in its default form, depending on what kind of TV you hook it up to, it might have seamless deinterlacing, if I remember correctly, but not always.
So while we're talking on that motion adaptive deinterlacing, I noticed that Brett 2000009's in the chat here, and he so kindly announced and called me out the other day about I put up a video for some deinterlacing, and I didn't realize that my my OBS settings were recording at 30 frames a second. And he quickly said, "Oh yeah, that you can't see the Bob on the other on the OSSC when I did it." And I wanted to thank him because I noticed he's in the chat tonight, and for so nicely calling me out. I very much appreciate it. Thank you very much. Just wanted to give him a shout on that.
Yeah, 30 frames Bob looks like.
Yeah, it looks terrible.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like 240p is what it looks like. Yeah. I guess.
It does not look good on the FrameMeister, I will tell you. Or I'm sorry, not on the frame, on the OSSC when it's like that. It totally falls apart, and it was not a fair comparison that I put out there. And I just noticed him in the chat here, and I just wanted to thank him for it, And I immediately pulled the video down and was like, I made a mistake.
Sometimes that stuff's hard to notice in editing.
You're so right about that.
I was talking to some people in our MLiG Discord. Someone was asking about I forget what the original question was, but there was this comparison that I did in our big PS2 episode where I took a 480p game and was showing RGB and components side by side, but I had had an earlier G-SCART that had a low pass filter in it that was kind of unnecessary. And I traded that with someone who wanted that D-sub output on that one. I traded that to someone who had like a dual SCART one that does not have that low pass filter on it. And but this was before then. So the RGB was a little softer than component. And I just wasn't thinking about how I recorded it. I didn't see it when I was in editing. And, some people look at that and go, I think component's actually a little sharper. And it's like, no. The point I was trying to make is they're like, for all intents and purposes, like basically the same quality. And, I put a comparison in Analog Frontiers that, was showing another 480p PS2 game specifically just to redeem myself for that one comparison, because the point is supposed to be they basically look the same.
So one of the big things with this, I'm not sure if it was mentioned, but this does not suffer any of the same problems with the FrameMeister OSSC suffer from, where there's a change in resolution or the signal drops. So I've set up a double screen so that people could see how this works versus in OSSC. So
why don't you switch to that and get plain Die Hard Arcade?
So you'll be able to see as it goes. I'm just going to keep this up for a little bit, but you'll be able to see. every time it says no signals, is when the signal is dropped, and the it has to re-handshake.
And I'd like to point out one other thing here, Corey. We're going out the GBSC AIO's HDMI signal right now. So that's one of the things we've added with our setup to the GBS control stuff, or the GBSC stuff, is we've added an HDMI output. That's basically just being fed by the VGA out. And you'll see how good it looks. Like, it looks really solid. Even special, I think it looks on par with the OSSC when you run the OSSC in generic mode, which I think that's what you're doing here.
Yeah. We tend to do everything in generic mode with the OSSC.
Yeah, we were talking about that recently. I mean, it's a lot of people are super into the optimized modes on the OSSC, but I'm personally in favor of a little, horizontal smoothness, because I feel that you're able to preserve the aspect ratio more accurately and stuff like that, and you have less risk of recording errors. I mean, it's a lot to keep up with, especially when you're recording a bunch of games from so many systems and dealing with the scale of footage we are. And no one really seems to call us out on it, like, oh, you're not using the OSSC.
So here's just, sorry to interrupt you, but if you look at the shadows here too on the floor, this is one of the areas where you can see where the GBSC actually does really well compared to the OSSC.
Oh yeah, it's got these dither shadows. They look look more blended on the GBSC.
Yeah,
I guess because the overall image is softer, but is that like an intentional dither blending?
I don't know. I believe that the way that it looks on the GBSC is the correct way that it should be handling that, and I'm not sure why the OSSC does what it's doing.
Well, I suspect this is maybe I don't know. I'm not an expert on like Saturn resolutions. I don't know if this is like a high horizontal resolution game, but that is interesting. There was a $5 super chat from Jonathan Henson. Thank you, saying, "Evening, gentlemen. Bought my blister and a bunch of controller adapters from Zero himself. He is a very stand-up guy." I'm not familiar with what blister is. I imagine it must have something to do with Mister.
Yeah, it's a low latency controller input for the Mister.
Oh, okay. So do you adapt like other controllers from it?
Think Bliss Box, but for the Mister.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I've never used the Bliss Box, but I've definitely heard people talk about them a lot.
I have really mixed feelings about it. They're definitely a very useful tool if you have one in hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing like some of that dithering, like sort of behind on the glass doors behind those spotlights.
Yeah,
it is interesting. It definitely looks different. I mean, I don't have a mode or anything like that to test this game out with, but I could probably figure out some other game.
So I was noticing in the chat there was a question about why the GBS 8220 wasn't used for this project. And I thought it'd be good for us to point this out. So there's a couple of reasons. The first reason and just so people understand the difference, there's a GBS 8200 and there's a GBS 8220. The 8220 actually has dual output, which is actually pretty cool. You could split the signal, do a lot of neat things with it. But we decided to go with the 8200 over the 8220 because it's more commonly available. Actually, Retro RGB actually had a lot of problems getting his 8200. He was actually sent a bag of bolts the first time he tried to get one.
It's such a random thing.
And we had problems sourcing them in large quantities, just finding a steady supplier. The second reason that we went with the 8200 over the 8220 is the GBSC AIO the AIO board is going to be an open source project, and our plan is after we sell the first batch that we're making, we're going to open source it. The reason why we're waiting to sell out the first batch, we want a return on investment for the time and the effort that we put into this. I plan to only be involved really with, I think, maybe this first batch that I'm making with Zero himself. and then after that, open source. It'll be open source, and anybody who wants to can make it and add it. And of course, I think if they're successful in this first batch, then Zero himself will probably keep making them, I would imagine. So,
I just wanted to point out, Corey. You know, I was told that the HDMI board on this outputs limited range, and I think you might whatever capture.
No, I have it set to limited.
Oh, okay. I just want to be sure. I saw a little bit of grays in the.
Oh yeah. I mean, you definitely see some grays, but I switched it in just to make sure, and it gets more gray.
Okay.
That's cool.
But you can definitely see all the drops that have been happening, and one of the areas where the GBSC really shines is not doing that.
I mean,
and I think overall it looks good.
Yeah, it does.
Totally. I mean, that's the thing. I saw somebody saying, like the slightly softer image compared to the OSSC, compared to how annoying the drops are. It's totally worth the trade-off.
Yeah, and especially too, like 480i, which I'm sure you'll play something 480i later. I mean, after I'm obviously going to want to do some more testing, but one thought I've had is replacing or at least maybe coming up. We've explained before how we've been using these DVDO iScan Pros for deinterlacing before sending it to the OSSC, so that we can record 480i stuff through the OSSC without resorting to Bob.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kind of had thoughts like, well, I wonder, I really would like to compare the difference in deinterlacing on this device versus combining the OSSC with the DVDO, and also it gives us, I think, something new to recommend for 480i content that, it's just been so hard because, the frame
like
rates
that gun
out
from RoboCop.
I like it. Out of production, and, it's really been the only thing to recommend that has that motion adaptive deinterlacing. Like, if you don't like Bob, then you're kind of out of luck. With kind of the currently available gaming centric devices. So
right, and I mean
especially this being so low latency with the deinterlacing and its motion adaptive. I mean that's pretty huge. It makes me really excited too to see what Dan and Christoph cook up for the motion adaptive on the PS1 and PS2 digital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that will be really cool when they come out with that. So I did notice in the chat, people are trying to compare the video quality back and forth. And I think that's probably this is the scenario that Corey's showing here is a bad way to think about it. Corey's not trying to compare video quality here. What he's trying to show is that how long it takes the OSSC to sync in between resolution changes.
Right.
And I think, honestly, I could show 25 images between the OSSC and the GBSC, the OSSC in generic mode. And if I just show you one image or the other, I think people would have a really hard time telling the difference between the two.
I think so too. If it wasn't a direct comparison. Yeah. I mean, you look at them side by side. I mean, is one going to win out in the sharpness, and the, maybe some of the color conversion department? Sure.
Yeah.
But on its own with no.
I'm going to keep this up for a second because I just want to show. I'm going to go into. I'm going to play Virtua Fighter 2 so that people can see that motion. I think Virtua Fighter 2 it's a 480i game. I think.
Corey, can you show that menu screen because that's a good deinterlacing menu screen back there.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You should be able to see it.
Next game, you'll see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty big deal that's in there. You all were telling me too that this is something that kind of blew my mind. Rama, I'm not exactly sure how he prefers his name to be pronounced, but I had no idea he's like such a Renaissance man.
Oh
Like,
God, he's a genius.
I mean, the things that he has had his hand in is like so mind-bogglingly diverse. I mean, I had no I knew that he you know, had a hand in, you know, I knew he did X Station and this, but you guys told me he's also the creator of the PCSX2 emulator.
Yeah, he's. I don't know if he's the creator, but he's definitely one of the larger contributors to it.
Okay, yeah,
So,
like that.
he might be the creator. I don't know for sure.
But like, I mean, it's so interesting to me because that is just such a impressive range of contributions. Because you know, you think, you know, major software emulator, you think upscaler project, and a original hardware ODE mod. Like, you know, we've got all the people who are, you know, original hardware or nothing, emulation or nothing, FPGA or nothing, and people are, you know, arguing about what's best, what's this and that. You know, everyone has their favorite that they feel like, you know, has to be the best, you know. But then here's this guy contributing to all of them.
Yeah.
You know, like it's so cool to see one person just like interested in doing all that. I mean, it's just fascinating to me. Like that's so cool.
Yeah, his skill level has me kind of like, it gives me something to aspire for because I'm relatively new into the retro gaming scene again. Like, I wasn't here for a long time, and then like I came back and I've been getting into this stuff and learning how to do all this cool stuff and learning about how the signals work. But then there are people like him. I was talking with him one night and he said like his EE skills are self-taught. And that was like mind-blowing to me. I was like, wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's the case for a lot of people, and that, you know, that does not discount their talents by any means. Like, that's, in some ways you might almost respect that more.
Yeah, and Rama's been super great to us. He's helped us out when we've had questions with the AIO. He's helped out with some of our testers. He's been just really, very helpful. He actually has one of the AIO units. We sent him one. So he's had a chance to look at. For people that don't know, the unit looks something like this. It's kind of like the OSSC where it's like a sandwich board.
Yeah.
The camera's not on screen right now.
Yeah, here I am holding it up.
Sorry,
So,
I think it's important to, I guess I could switch it back here in a second.
No, it's all good. Leave it on the games.
The non AIO version, like it's very, very DIY. I mean, there is
because you got one that's just the basic one. Did Bob send it to you?
Yeah. Bob put it together, and you know, it's got a lot of wires and everything going on with it. But the AIO makes it so it's just like a much more approachable thing to have, and like to integrate. And it's very much set up. You guys were telling me that the whole point is that you want to be able to set it up and then forget it. You don't even have to like dig it out. Right. And one of the coolest things about it is that to access the menu, you do it through Wi-Fi. You connect it to your local Wi-Fi, and then you can access the menu from a browser. So once you kind of put it away, you don't really have to see it.
Yeah. That's correct. And of course, there are going to be people that want to tweak settings and stuff like that inevitably have to touch it to get it perfect for everything that they play. But I think when you for most people, once you set it up and you put it into your system, you'll kind of just leave it where it's at. And one of the nice things about the GBSC AIO and the GBSC firmware is the way that firmware works with the true view scaler chip on the GBS board is it tries to perform some calculations to get the best looking picture every time you run video through it. So you don't have to really have profiles per se like you do with the OSSC. Every time you run a signal through it, the scaler is going to try to figure out the best settings for it. Pretty much the only settings you have to to set is resolution. And once it knows the resolution output, it will figure out the best settings for it.
Yeah, I mean it's Corey was having a lot of trouble getting that just regular GBS control to work with his stuff, and I think it seems to me what you guys are trying to do is make a product that is ready for the average person to use. I mean, yeah, this is the retro gaming hardware community. You're definitely going to have a little bit of, at least basic, skills at configuring things, but you don't have to be a master at it. Like this,
Right.
this feels like a product that is as ready for the, general consumption as, something like the OSSC, where, it's, it is, you can go deep with it if you want, but like it is easily usable for,
Right.
for the average person, and definitely offers some tools. Maybe it's not the one and only scaler that you want to have, but maybe you want to connect your PS2 to it, or your PS1 or Saturn or something, some of those systems that do give you problems.
And those libraries have a lot of 480i content in them, and I think that that's one of the things where the GBS-C firmware does really well, is that it handles 480i very good, it handles resolution switching very good, and those 5th gen consoles and above, it really shines with those. Now, I think it looks really good with the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. I think overall, I think most people would be very happy with the picture that they saw out of it. One of the things that we've gotten, and I've seen it pop up here in the chat a couple times, is that people are asking, does it come with the clock mod? And we are very excited to announce that all of the AIO boards will now come with the clock mod. And we actually ordered a bunch of clock boards this last week, and Zero himself has agreed to go ahead and install those in all of the GBS-C AIOs. So in terms of the experience with the AIO, it's probably the Cadillac experience of the GBS-C and GBS control. And it's packaged in a nice little package for everybody, where you won't have to do much, you don't have to put anything together. You'll be able to enjoy the great motion adaptive deinterlacing and fast resolution switching. It should be virtually plug and play for most people.
There was a $2 super chat from Aaron Welsh saying, can this take TTL level sync for RGBS? And I believe the answer is yes, because that's what the sync drive is all about, right?
So it can take it right off the D sub for TTL video or TTL sync. You could hook that up right with with just like a VGA to BNC cable, or if you're going to run like a CGA video or VGA video into that, we'd recommend that you use TTL sync when you're using that D sub.
Mm-hmm.
The inputs are on this side, so like that's.
I'm wondering.
That's what the TTL is for, and then the outputs are on this side. So
and then you have the SCART port on the side too, though.
Right.
So.
The SCART port is not something that's native to the GBS 8200.
Mm-hmm. So, I've seen a lot of people kind of mention the like sometimes there's a little bit of a pinkish tint, or like kind of a purplish tint overall. I'm not sure if that's because I'm feeding everything, like even RGB stuff, just in terms of convenience. I'm feeding them through an RGB. I'm one of Mike Chi's RGB to comp transcoders, just so I can run everything in. And as far as I know, in the GBS user interface, there's no way to adjust specific color levels. Correct? So
you can use, there kind of is, kind of isn't. So there is an automatic gain control that you can turn on and off, and that kind of will like reset and rebalance the colors as needed. Mm-hmm. It gets back to what I was talking about earlier with that TrueView chip tries to figure out what it thinks are going to be the best settings and apply them for the video with the GBS-C control firmware.
Right. Okay.
One of the things that I have talked about with RAMA, and maybe it will be added to the firmware, is individual RGB bias control. And you can actually access those settings inside the registers on the scaler chip. Like, so if you were to connect with like a serial terminal, you can actually kind of tweak those a little bit, but they're not available in the GBS-C firmware.
Because I wonder if that would help with like some of the black levels. I think people are saying like, oh, the black levels, like it looks a little, like it's like a little bit brighter. And I've messed with the gain because like the auto gain sometimes is a little bit too bright. But so I've like kind of manually set it for each one, because if it goes too bright or if it's too dark, you start to see like some noise and solid colors. So I've tried to dial it in as best as I can. You still see like some of that noise. It doesn't really show up on stream or in a capture card. I think that might just be like I see it on my TV because it doesn't really show up on any capture that I've done. It just might be the way that might be my TV settings or something.
There was another $2 super chat from Aaron Welsh again. Thank you. Saying, does the VGA input have a LPF and does it need it? I mean, I guess that's probably in relation to the OSSC VGA input.
It does not need the LPF. I believe that the way that the TrueView scaler chip works and with the control firmware, it's a little bit softer. You won't need a low pass filter with it.
I can tell you without a doubt that it has the effect of doing a low-pass filter. I was testing a Genesis that had some significant jail bar noise, and it definitely filtered out all the jail bar noise from the Genesis.
Yeah, that's something that's interesting because, I thought I was one of those lucky people who had a Genesis with no jail bars because I couldn't see them on the FrameMeister. And I couldn't really see them on a CRT either. But then I got the OSSC, and it's like, you can just see a little bit more of those imperfections because the OSSC is so... I don't know if this may be the word to use, but it's very literal, I think, with its conversion. It's just kind of showing you it is what how it is. It's showing you the true signal in a lot of ways. So, I can in certain situations definitely see jail bars on the OSSC, but it's like less visible on FrameMeister. So I'd be curious to see.
I bet they disappear on the GBS-C.
Yeah. I haven't tried my Genesis on it yet, but I'd be curious. I saw someone saying earlier, like, is there any quality loss from converting VGA to HDMI? And like, I don't know really what the processing chain of the whole thing is, but like, at some point, I mean, you're starting off analog anyway, and at some point in every upscaler conversion, you're that's ultimately ending up at HDMI. I mean, there is a digital to analog conversion. I don't know if there's like an unnecessary conversion somewhere in the chain possibly, but I mean, that's all on, I guess, the adapter that you've used for converting. I mean, I don't have to do comparisons, but I would be curious to see how it compares to the FrameMeister, because the FrameMeister does kind of, I mean, it has noise of its own. They're like, see, I'm looking at this now loading screen. That sort of dark blackish color that was part of that screen is very much the kind of color that on the FrameMeister I would expect to see maybe some noise, even sort of the middle flat greens on the mountains in this background. On the FrameMeister, I would expect there to be just kind of some weird stuff going on in there. And obviously we're looking at this on a stream, so you couldn't really say for sure, but I doubt it has that same kind of noise. I mean, but I'm sure it's not like the most amazing, A to D thing ever, but I'm sure it's chosen to be a good but economical.
It is. So, yeah, and to be up.
I mean, you can see it. I mean, it's you can see it with its casing right here. I mean, I've seen things that look very much like it before. It's got the 3.5 millimeter to embed the audio into the HDMI.
So yeah, and that's a fair assessment. So we used a VGA to HDMI adapter. we used a VGA to HDMI adapter, and we did this for a couple reasons. First of all, to get around some of the HDMI licensing. When we use a separate adapter like that and we just throw it on there, it makes things a lot easier for us. So
the original manufacturer is the one that's paying for the HDMI.
Yeah.
But those, it's worth pointing out that those, if people were ever curious, you can get, well, of course I'm thinking of the reverse, but you can get for like really cheap on Amazon, like HDMI to VGA the other way around, like, and they're low lag and they're really cheap, and it's kind of weird how good they are for the cost. And I'm sure you can get the other way around as well. So this stuff, I don't, just like the GBS itself is kind of a budget device, you can actually get some decent stuff, I think, out of some of these things if you pick and choose the right pieces.
I lost to.
There was a $5 super chat from EB Chill 2. Thank you. Saying, would this work on the 3DO as a downscaler? I haven't found a Japanese 3DO yet. It's what was it? What's the model that has the 240p switch, Corey? FZ something?
Like the FC1, of the Japanese version has the 240p switch.
Yeah, so if you fed 3DO 480i into this, would it look just as good as if you had?
As far as I know, like I thought it could do downscaling from 40i, or it could take 40i to make it 240p, but I think I somehow got that to work randomly before, but it does not do that.
Yeah, it wants a 480p signal.
Or 480p to 240p, is that what it does?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you do have to have 480p input, which, there are like, classic game and arcade game compilations.
Should I do some PS2?
Like Xbox and GameCube and PS. I don't know about PS2, but I would definitely say on Xbox and GameCube, there's probably some that are 480p. I know like the Zelda Collector's Edition and stuff. You can get 480p out of that. But yeah, so I guess it wouldn't work for 3DO unless you somehow de-interlaced it first, but then you're probably then doing too many things to the signal and adding a ton of lag.
Well, that's one system that I wish I had one laying around to test with, but I just couldn't come up with a 3DO in any way, shape, or form. So
I wonder if it's possible for Rama to add 480i de-interlacing or 480i to 240p, or if that's just if there's a technical limitation there.
Well, I can't say for certain, but if I recall correctly, whenever I first started playing with the downscaling, I think I had it downscaling some other signals besides 480p. Like I swear at some point I had it doing 720p from my Switch, but I could be mistaken.
What's the highest resolution signal that you can input into the thing?
It should support up to, I want to say 1600 or 1280 by 1600. But that would be through the D sub on the front.
Can you do? Can you input 1080i into it and de-interlace it?
No. Or to de-interlace it, yes. To de-interlace it, yes. Not downscale it.
Right, but yeah, if you wanted 1080i in, 1080p out, it can do that.
I'm going to play Shattered Soldier because we always feel like this is.
I was playing it earlier. I was playing it on mine earlier. It was the second game I played on it.
Because this one it's a very good way to show problems with de-interlacing.
Which for the record is something that anything that does motion adaptive.
Yeah, the PS3.
Even the PS3 with its internal handling of it's all digital internal handling of PS2 games. Even the PS3 has de-interlacing errors here. I don't think because with a 60 frames per second game and the 60 hertz flicker, I just don't think there's any way that you could
to make it look good. Period. That's super loud. Hang I don't know.
Oh, is
I
the
have,
game? It is a loud game. You might need to turn it down, I guess.
yeah, I guess I have a
Um,
save game that has 99 credits on here.
Wow.
I must have downloaded it so I could show.
Yeah, probably.
Definitely.
There was a $5 super chat from Benjamin Castaneos. I hope I didn't butcher your name too badly. Saying, how can one connect a Dreamcast to the GBS control? Mine doesn't seem to like the Dreamcast at all.
Okay, so with our unit, there's two different ways. You could go through the SCART port, which we've added, or you could go through the VGA.
So do you, if you're just doing a regular VGA signal from the Dreamcast,
It should work fine. Mine works. The couple Dreamcast units that I have work great. I have heard that some people have problems downscaling with the Dreamcast.
I mean, you know, I've got like this really cheap VGA cable that I use with the Dreamcast connected to my VGA monitor, and like in that context, it looks totally fine. Like, I mean, you don't necessarily need anything complicated unless you're worried about games that don't support 480p and stuff like that. But you know, if you're doing other things with it, you know, it probably doesn't hurt to get like a nice cable. Like I've got the Retro Access SCART cable that actually has like a 480, like a 15 kilohertz, 31 kilohertz switch on it, so you can play those 480i and 240p Dreamcast games just by flicking that switch on. I believe the board inside that was designed by Dan, if I'm not mistaken. There's that. Then, you know, the HD Retrovision, you know, is hopefully a thing eventually. But you know, so those are, you know, I think more convenient ways. But like, if you're not worried about making like reference quality Dreamcast signal or something, like especially just going into like a VGA monitor or something, you honestly can get away with a cheap cable. I don't think that's a problem at all. Like I used to think you had to have a VGA monitor, but I don't think that's actually the case. There was a £5 donation from Engine UK. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I got an HDMI discard adapter for my PC Engine Mini. Amazed how good it is. Going into my Sony UK RGB CRT, downscaled for €6 would love a quality alternative. That's interesting. Does it look interlaced though going into your CRT? I wonder, because like for example, that's what would happen with like a PlayStation 3. That's a really interesting method. And you know, if the flicker, if like the interlacing flicker isn't that obvious, then you know that's you know, that certainly sounds like an interesting solution. But like, you know, the PS3 for example.
So you'll see. I think the flickering looks pretty good in this. Like when you see it like some of that artifacts that you would normally see, but just in general, I mean, you'll see it here. I mean, it's impossible to avoid it completely. I mean, Bob interlace, I guess, would be fine, but that has its own set of quirks to it.
Right. If you're doing motion adaptive deinterlacing, I think you're always going to see those coming artifacts on a 60 hertz flicker. But the thing is, I don't think that kind of behavior is super common in 480i games.
Right. I mean, yeah, exactly.
You know, if there is a flicker, like I think it would be more of like a 30 hertz flicker rather than a 60 hertz flicker. I don't know if that's really the right terminology to be using, but I think it's a slightly, you know, like every 2 frames flicker instead of every other frame. You know, especially with this game being, I'm pretty sure field rendered. I mean, there's just a lack of information going to any device that's doing deinterlacing to really know what to do with. Now, this is such a good game, but it is so hard.
I was gonna say, do you think this is the hardest game you've ever beaten?
It's up there. And the thing is, like I've beaten it, but done like the bare minimum beat. Like there's like 2 whole levels that you can unlock if you play the all of the stages with like perfect rankings and stuff like that, which I can't even imagine. It's like so difficult to just get through the game normally. It is such a hard. There was a 5 Canadian donation from Vladimir Huljkovec. Saying, Zero, thanks for shipping Mr. Stuff to Niagara Falls this past spring. Everyone, haven't tested my Mayflash 500 arcade stick. What do I need to know? Well, I don't know anything about the Mayflash arcade stick. All I know is I've got a Mayflash Wii U wireless dongle for PC games, and it's my PC controller of choice for the Wii U Pro controller. That's my only experience with Mayflash.
I need to get some arcade sticks for all my setups here, but I'm ultimately waiting till I have some downtime and can set up my gaming room and my stream setup.
What's that? Is that some sort of black monitor? Is like a CRT or some kind?
No, that one is an LCD. Then I've got a Threadripper build I did over there that needed some work. The SSD died in it.
Oh no, I wasn't looking at that. Is that a computer case then on the left?
That one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a computer tower.
Oh, okay. On the stream, it kind of looked like some sort of weird, like the shiny face of it looked like some sort of weird CRT of some kind.
Yeah, you could be a little bit confused. I've got a brand new E-machines on the floor over here. I'm gonna mess up my camera. But yeah, I got a brand new E-machines monitor that I need to unbox. I got lucky and found that new for $70, and then I'll give you guys the old workshop tour. I've got a couple different monitors just laying around I test with.
I just wanted to call out one of the super chats because they were asking, they didn't see it get announced, and especially because this one's so great because it mentions Zero, and that was from Vladimir. I'm going to butcher his name. I'm very sorry. Yeah, the $5 Canadian, and thank you for Zero for the Mr. Stuff.
There's also. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, yeah, man, no problem. I believe in helping my customers however I can. It was no problem to ship to you.
Niagara Falls, it's like up in my neck of the woods when I was growing up.
I guess I talked how Maximo versus Army of Zen looks. It's such a nice looking game.
And I think it looks really good on the GBSC AIO. That was one of the games that I played a lot on my own with it.
Yeah,
it's unfortunate they were forced to do Final Fight Streetwise after this.
Yeah, which I think, like, I would love to see a Final Fight game done with like the Yakuza engine. Like, I think that would be incredibly awesome. I know that that's kind of like what Final Fight Streetwise wanted to be like, and just never made it. But
well, yeah, I mean, Streetwise is looking at it now. It is such a product of whenever it came out, like 2005 or whatever. It is like exactly like the stupidest version of that year you can think of. And it's embarrassing to play it now, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like all the characters, the voice acting, the dialogue is extremely embarrassing.
Extremely terrible.
There was also, before I see another donation popped up, but I want to say that there was $4.20 via Super Chat from TB Adventures saying, "Is FrameMeister still king?"
It's the right tool for the right job. Each device has things that it really excels at. I think all of them are generally good all-around scalers, and each have their need and their purpose, and each one will check the box for somebody depending on how their setup is.
Right. I mean, the thing I always like to say, if you've got a FrameMeister, it's still an excellent device, but we don't generally go out of our way to recommend it nowadays because it's out of production and
it's like $600 now.
Yeah, it's very expensive now. So like, don't go out of your way to buy one now just because you saw one of our older videos and that was.
Well, there was a comment a long time ago that says, like, I can't believe they're recommending this thing as like $600. And I'm like, well, it wasn't 5 years ago when this video was made.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was still expensive at the
yeah,
time.
I mean,
though, too.
I mean, so there's between the OSSC and the RetroTink devices and this, like there are, you don't have to spend more than like 130 US dollars plus possibly shipping depending on what you're buying to kind of get in the to get in the door on scaling anymore. It's a very different time now than it was when the FrameMeister came out. Like right now, like I think like the RetroTink 2X Mini is like the the lowest cost thing that like I'm willing to recommend as a a gaming focused scaler. I mean, yeah, you can get things for $30 on Amazon, but they aren't made for game content. They aren't optimized for it. The OS or the RetroTink is, so I mean, you've got this range of devices, and they all have their place, and the FrameMeister still has its place, but don't feel like, oh, it's the be all end all. I got to get one. I got to shell out all this money for one. That's not the case.
So one of the things, like while we're talking about FrameMeister costs, it's popping up a lot in the chat, is what is this going to cost? And so I think we should set some fair expectations for everybody. The first thing is it's going to be somewhere around the cost of the OSSC and the RetroTink products. You might be wondering, why don't we have a price pinned down right now? We're still making them. We want to get through the production of all of them, and then we'll set a cost. But I can tell you that it's going to be around the OSSC and the RetroTink products cost. The next thing is where can we order one? Well, you can order one from the GBSC AIO website. Also, we're not going to open pre-orders until we're done building the first batch of them. So once we're done building the first batch, when you guys order them, they should ship relatively soon because they'll already be built. And it was a decision that we made early on into this project that we didn't want to do the pre-order thing without actually coming to market with the actual product. There's been too many things in the retro community where something happens to one of the developers, or where they run into problems, or something doesn't work out, and then people are caught holding the bag. I actually got caught on one of those projects. I won't mention them on the stream, but I lost a couple $100 on it because the proprietor of that product never brought it all the way forward. And I just feel like it's the right thing for us to do, rather than that I should go ahead and finance and put this all out and get these built and get them all there before we start taking orders. And the other thing to note is I'm only doing this first batch of them. After that, I won't do any more. Zero may make more, and other people may make them, because I'm going to release the plans for the AIO board open source. That was part of my agreement with Tinkerplunk, who designed the boards. That's Jacob Proctor. Is that he gave me a good price on doing the board layout and design with me, as long as I released it open source. And so as soon as we sell out of my first batch of them, that's when it will go open source.
There was also a super chat from Game & Clyde. Thank you. Saying, I hope y'all are doing well. Have you had any compatibility issues with certain consoles? Neo Geo MVS doesn't seem to like it. Also, tell Zero I said hi. I mean, obviously with Neo Geo MVS, you're dealing with, a variety of possible super
it's also it suffers from the same problem as like the NES and SNES, like with the D-jitter. I didn't realize that was like a.
Oh, is that a Neo Geo thing as well?
No, it's not a D-jitter. I actually was talking to Rama about this last week, and one of the things he told me is there is one model of the MVS that doesn't seem to work well with the GBSC firmware, and somebody actually sent him. He just got it recently. This particular MVS model. I have an MVS model, and it works great. I've actually got videos on my channel with it through the AIO. So I think it depends, and there were quite a few different revisions and models of the MVS, and I think it depends on which one you have. It's something that I think Rama might be looking at. I know somebody sent him one of the models that's known to be problematic. I don't know which one it is off the top of my head.
So we can
So,
expect like future firmware updates as well.
So Rama's firmware is open source. I know that he will take GitHub polls and feature requests and whatnot. And from time to time, things do. Actually, Zero submitted him a feature enhancement that I think he will probably end up pulling into his GitHub repository. So yeah, anybody can submit a PR.
I really like seeing Maximo and versus the Army of Zen. I love the title of this game. I love seeing it, kind of being so visible here because I was using this game actually back when I did the big PS2 RGB episode to kind of settle on some ideal FrameMeister PS2 settings because if you don't this game in particular feels like it can be way too dark,
right,
in some situations.
And definitely the FrameMeister suffers, or not the FrameMeister, but the OSSC suffers from it being too dark sometimes too.
Yeah,
I could probably show that actually. Hang on, let's see if I can.
And if you're playing it on a CRT and you've got like too much light in the room, this game is just very difficult to see.
I think a lot of games from the PS2 era were very dark.
Yeah.
I'll try this.
Some games, like it almost seems like they expected you to adjust your CRT or something just because of how dark they sometimes could be.
Corey, I just want to make sure too that you don't have the YPRPB switch turned on right now on the GBSC AIO. That's another thing that will brighten up the picture significantly if you do have that turned on.
Let me take a look. It may, because I just moved it to another place unless I bumped it. Hang on, let me check it. Take a look.
And it's not really recommended that be on for this, but it is one of those things that will brighten up the picture.
Yeah, I can honestly say I've used it to cheat a couple of times.
I when I did my testing, I had it off. I haven't tried it yet.
Technically, it's not really good to leave that switch on if you're in RGB mode because it's outputting the improper voltage, but generally most stuff is tolerant enough to handle it just fine.
Mm-hmm.
I
saw some sort of change happen, but I'm not sure if it was good or bad.
Okay, no, it was not on. It's not on.
Okay.
So if you turn it on, you'll see a significant brightness.
Yeah, I switched it and you'll see it. I mean, just for a second during the stream, you would see it. Do it. Because I just moved it to a different place in my setup yesterday, so that's why I need to make sure in case I bumped it or something.
There was a 2 Canadian super chat from Breath of the Wild saying the FrameMeister is gutter trash. I mean, and if it is not at all your solution, I guess that can be fair. But I don't think that's the case for everyone. I think. I think for a lot of people, the FrameMeister ticks a lot of boxes for them. I mean, I would not. Again,
I mean, the colors here are definitely looking kind of weird. I mean, on my PVM, it's like showing like you can't really see a lot of the green. It's definitely has a bit of a reddish tint to it. So I'm gonna see if one of the things. I mean, there's different settings that like sometimes the oversampling helps with it, but I'm not sure if it's gonna.
I just think if you want reference quality video, the GBSC AIO is not going to be the device for you. But I think overall it's a good picture. It's got some neat features and neat things. I think it's important to.
I just hit the if I hit the oversampling to 4x, it looks a lot more correct now. So I mean. And one thing I didn't realize until today is that each of the saved presets, each preset saves for the different resolutions. So like preset 1 will have NTSC and also NTSC 480p in the same preset. So it'll detect what it's receiving and it will load that preset based on what it's receiving. So it will come up with the correct preset Right. I mean, I didn't even realize that was the case.
Yeah. Yeah, the
until-
presets will save that stuff. So one of the things about the GBS-C control firmware and the GBS hardware is talking about how they work together and how they produce a picture. For so long, I think so many in retro gaming have been caught up in the 4X, 5X, 3X, 2X modes. And if they see something outside of that, they're confused of it. And so the GBS-C firmware and GBS hardware actually take a slightly different approach to this.
Right.
They to wrap it up in kind of like a neat package that people can understand simply, there's only a couple things you have to keep in mind. The first thing is what do you want the output resolution to be? Once the GBS-C firmware knows this, what it does is it generally will sample the horizontal or the vertical resolution with an integer scale. Generally, it's not always going to be an integer scale. It'll be real close to it. Then it will take the horizontal resolution and it will upsample it. And it will upsample the signal. Then, after it upsamples that signal, it will reduce it or downsize it. And that's how the scaling works on this. So that TrueView scaler tries to pick the best based on what the horizontal and the vertical resolutions are and tries to fit the best fit for it. And it does a really good job of figuring that out. Now, the other part of this is, why do we have resolution-free switching or fast switching? And this is because it basically writes as it's drawing the picture, it's scanning the field, and it takes each field and it writes it to SD RAM. And as it reads from that SD RAM, it reads from a different place in the field, and so it's constantly buffering in and buffering out. That's why you have that sub 1 frame of lag. That sub 1 frame of lag is that reading one field and another part in the field at the same time, and that's pretty much why you have the flicker-free resolution switching. So it's just a different approach to scaling.
Is that something that you could not do with another type of RAM?
It's just the way that the TrueView chip and video sources work and how it produces that. It's why you have that subframe of, I hate to call it lag, it's more of like a buffer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a really like oversimplified version of how it all works together.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't quite wrap my head around all of that, but like, it's been interesting to see, just here very recently, a few different approaches to that no drop ideal. What was last week we streamed the PS1 digital, and it's got several methods, depending on your game, depending on your setup, that you might want to choose one mode or another. And speaking of the PS1 digital and the stream that we did last week, Dan actually got in contact with me on Monday because he, I guess he did actually report to Rama when early in Spyro I had those the cutscene audio stopped playing at some point, and Dan just like said, "Hey, I'm talking to Rama. Like, I just wanted to clarify some details."
Yeah.
And he said
a new firmware came out like this week, so I wonder if it's fixed in that new firmware.
Oh, a new firmware for X Station or PS1 digital?
X Station.
Oh, okay. Well, Dan was saying that their theory, I don't know if their theory changed, because this was just what he was saying when I guess he had just presented the problem to Rama. He said that their working theory was that the overclock mode that I had on had something to do with it. And I said, well, that was my guess too, and that's why I turned it off and went back to Force 240 mode, because I mean there was no reason to have any of that on for that game anyway, since it's it doesn't have resolution switching. But that's what I was guessing, and I never saw that issue again. By the way, it's kind of funny. I started playing Spyro 2 last week on the PS1 digital, when I went to my parents' house last week, I brought my PS2 9000 and hooked it up composite on a CRT there to finish the game. So I played that game from beginning to end in a wide range of configurations. It actually looked pretty decent in composite, to be honest.
Yeah, PS1 does look pretty. Generally, it looks pretty good in composite, I think. Just in general.
3D, early 3D on a CRT composite, not necessarily so bad.
I'm gonna finish this level and I'll play something else. Does anybody have anything that they'd like me to play?
I think everybody wants you to play Chrono Cross.
All right. I can definitely do that.
There was a super chat from old Craig Wan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Saying, sorry I missed you guys last Sunday. I was celebrating my 36th birthday. Well, that's I did the same earlier this year myself. And wow, this upscaler is impressive. I want one. Keep up the amazing work.
So we can't take credit. This is Rama's excellent firmware. All we've done is kind of made an add-on board for it. And but
so
thank you for the nice compliments.
Ready to go.
Yeah,
solution.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot to be said about that because it's. I mean,
as it
is like as a DIY thing, it's like it's messy, but just like having something that is like the AIO where it's just like a all in one package that doesn't have like a billion wires that you might bump and have them come loose.
Mm-hmm.
Like that there is a lot to be said for.
Well, yeah, a lot of GBSC home DIY builds look more like a Hydra with 3 power supplies and a Stink Strike and this box and that box and a bunch of wires, and I mean it might be something like a rat's nest project, but we've tried to boil it down to where it's just one power supply. It's clean, it's nice. You don't have to take anything apart to like disconnect or reconnect things. We just feel like we've refined it a little bit, and we do want to give our credit to Rama. On the bottom of every GBSC AIO is a link to Rama's Buy Me a Coffee.
Oh yeah.
And this is a donation to Rama. Thank you for his excellent firmware. We want to give credit where credit's due. So, and that's on every of all the ones that I'm going to sell in this first batch. It'll be on the bottom. So,
Yeah, one of the other things that I think is really neat about this is I see a lot of people asking if it can do this or that. I might want to take the time to remind everybody that this is an open source project. You can contribute and you can help make improvements to this. If you really see a feature that you want and you have the know-how, hop in and help out.
Yeah. Or if you want to try to get the knowledge to hop in and help out. Rama's been super friendly about, telling us, hey, this works like that or this. And just the community around it has really been very, very good. And I think that if somebody did want to kind of hop into something more, there could be an opportunity for somebody there.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. I mean, and it's a good thing to have in the community, to have sort of this place for more people to gain this this working understanding of how scan conversion works, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I learned a whole lot about analog video signals throughout this process of trying to make sure that this thing outputted in-spec signals. Like before that, like I knew what they were, but I didn't really understand how to really properly read them. Now, like I can actually look at a signal on my oscilloscope and be like, oh yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. I thought that was really cool.
I just take oscilloscope footage that I've shot at other people's houses. And I'm just like, okay, look at the cool lines. I'm going to plop that in my video. That looks cool. I don't know what it means. It just looks.
I think I grabbed the right memory card. I looked up my memory card save file master list, so we're gonna see if I can play a different part in Chrono.
You've actually got a decent save in this game. After this game, I think you should play like a a Super Nintendo game or some like just a really clean looking sprite based game, because we haven't really seen that yet.
Sonic 2 for the resolution switches.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
What I got here.
Chrono Cross is one of those games that I've been dying to play forever. Chrono Trigger has to be by far one of my favorite SNES games ever.
It's it's a divisive game because it's maybe not the sequel people wanted. It's a very different game with a very different sort of scope. It takes place in an archipelago. Versus, it takes place in an archipelago with like two versions of one world, versus the original game that is, spans the entire globe and takes place in like 5 or something different time periods, so it's very different. The connections to the original game are tenuous and divisive, but I love it. I think it's a great game in its own right, and has, what is I feel like most commonly voted as like the best soundtrack of all time. I mean, it's a very popular pick for best soundtrack, and it deserves that recognition, I think.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, I know it's not going to be like Chrono Trigger, but it's something that I've heard such mixed stuff on, and I want to find out for myself. It looks like it'll be a fun game.
I do enjoy it. I mean, I don't know if you've played Xenogears, but it's made by a lot of the team that did Xenogears, and the battle system is similar.
That's actually another one I haven't played. I've got a whole long list of stuff to start playing and streaming eventually here.
Now, if you look in this menu here, there's little green, the little green bars that are on each character's stat sheet.
I saw that.
Those, I believe they're just like one field tall little icons, and I very much remember not understanding when I got this game. I got it the day it came out, and I very much remember just like not understanding why are those dots flickering so much. Like why do they flicker? And I didn't understand that, it was switching to this other resolution, and because there is such a were you just making some adjustments? Because I saw.
Yeah, just like messing with the oversampling. Like sometimes you get like a better color with certain games. I've found, like either the 1x or the 2x.
Hey, can you check our Discord chat?
Yeah, one sec.
Hey, GameSack.
Joe, I'm using the 1080p preset. I found the 1080p just works really well. Like generally, I use 4x for the OSSC and basically everything, but 1080p, and it also makes it easier for streaming, so it doesn't switch between the resolutions so much, and I'd have to turn off the capture card and turn it back on for it to recenter.
But the flicker on those allocation things, though, that really fascinated me as a kid, because I was just like, I just didn't understand the different resolutions. I didn't even understand that. Oh, now that's interesting. I just saw a screen tear. Is that related to the? I mean, I know you're not running this out.
You'd have to ask Corey, because he's the only one that can see it right now. I don't know if it's related to his capture or not.
What?
But that's one of the things that we hope that the clock mod will fix in the future, and it's one of the reasons why we've decided to go ahead and add it to every GBSC AIO.
Oh,
because
were you
I was just wondering if it could. I mean, I know he's playing on the same system that has the PS1 digital in. I was wondering if like his clock setting on that might have anything to do with.
I wasn't seeing any tearing. I mean, I was using
I
fast
saw
forward.
it on the. I saw a quick tear on the overhead segment.
Oh, when I get back to it, I'll take another look.
Yeah, I wish we could have sent you guys one with the clock mod.
How difficult is it to install after the fact?
You would definitely need some soldering skills.
Okay.
It's not impossible, but it does require several wires to be. And actually, GameSack's here in the chat, and we actually sent him one with the clock mod.
Oh, nice.
And he's telling us right now in the chat, no more tearing anymore for me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I could always send it back, right? And it could be installed.
That's what I was going to suggest. If you guys want ones with clock mods, I can swap them out for you and send you a return shipping label for the original units.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah, I didn't see on the little testing I've done so far, but I don't know. Is that like an HDMI only thing, or would it also happen with VGA?
It would happen with the VGA as well. It would be happening on the VGA side of the board. And a lot of times it depends on your hardware, and the video signal that you're.
it's been a long time
that you're sending it. So
that's cool. I didn't know the GameSack was testing it. I know that you had Chris from Classic Gaming Quarterly has also been testing it, and he really likes it.
he was one of the first paying customers for it. He wanted to pay us for one, and he wanted to test for us. So we gladly took his money, and so you can, whatever he's saying is his unbiased review. He got he didn't. We've sent him to a couple different YouTube celebrities, and asked people to kind of take him out. I don't mean to be blowing people out and telling who we've sent things to, but
what's this fast forward function that you're doing here?
If you do, I'm doing New Game Plus.
Oh.
Did you not know that if you hold down R2, you can fast forward?
It's been so long since I did a New Game Plus. I don't have a beat file in this game anymore. I have no clue what happened to it. Like I've beaten it 2 or 3 times, but
I've only finished it once.
yeah, I replayed it immediately after I beat it when it first came out. Because I thought I would, I'd like, I wanted to get all the characters and stuff. But there was a 577 from Seven Kurgan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Saying, Corey, can you try the FF7 game over screen? That's 480i. Even though it does matter, I guess. I guess you meant to maybe say doesn't matter.
I
How
mean,
likely to die in Final Fantasy stuff?
Especially like if I load my save.
Yeah, you've got like a stupid save on it or something.
so
Voltar, the reason it looks like it's being like the game footage is because there's a fast forward functionality if you do a New Game Plus, and I'm just like holding down R2 to fast forward at times. This is how it normally is. Hang on, let me turn on the analog here. This is how it normally is, but if you go like this, you can go a lot faster. I forgot though. Yeah, it's just the New Game Plus thing. That's something that more games should have. I like that all the Ease games, or the also the Trails of Cold Steel all have that on the New Game Plus too.
I mean, I always think of. I mean, I'm sure it's not entirely true, but I've always thought of Chrono Trigger as like the origin of the New Game Plus. I feel like it was the first game to call it.
Oh, this is definitely the first game I can think of that I played that had a New Game Plus, and the idea behind that was mind blowing at the time.
Yeah, I mean, something that always disappoints me is that it's become like a popular feature in like modern games, but it's always like, like kind of a hard mode. Like
Yeah, I mean, I do New Game
I don't
Plus
think
because I
there's
want
a
it to
lot
be
of
easy.
games that like let you carry over your stuff quite as freely as Chrono Trigger did, and like just let you blow through the game. Like it always seems like, oh well, you can carry over all your stats, but now all the monsters are way
Well,
harder. It's like,
because
well, I wanted to do a New Game Plus so that everything would be easy and breezy, you know?
yeah, but I mean, the whole point of the New Game Plus was that you can get these endings that are really early in the game that you'd never be able to do without it.
Right. I mean, so those endings aren't even technically available because I think there's like a sparkle, like on the telepods game of
right.
Chrono Trigger that like doesn't exist on your first run.
Well, I mean, like getting Lavos beat that first run. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you couldn't, but
God. The only way to do it is by cheating. At least I think so.
yeah. But this game, like I'm pretty sure you have to play at least twice to get every character to join. Because there's like some characters that I don't think will join you depending on choices that you make throughout the game. Like I forget if they're part of like different. Like there's definitely some choices that you can make, like like follow this character or follow that character, and you end up doing this or that, and I forget. I'm pretty sure I've read that it's possible to do it in 2 runs. I don't think you have to do 3 runs, but I guess you might. But I never did it. I definitely tried, but I guess I didn't try that hard. But I fell short of it. So do you not have a save on here that just has like mid game gameplay? Because like
No, I mean it's like there's something at like probably right before the last boss.
Oh yeah, the last boss in this game has no music. It's always such a bummer.
John was telling me something about how the entire soundtrack in this is just made up of samples. And therefore it's like all these amazing compositions, but the actual file size for them is like tiny.
Oh,
Like every aspect of the music is a sample.
I'm sure. I mean I bet if you pop the lid open with a disc running, I'm sure it plays normally.
Yeah. Well,
It's like, that blew my mind when the first time I really had like access to a PS1 was when a friend loaned me his, and I was playing Final Fantasy VII on it, and I was surprised that when I popped it open, the disc stopped running. I'm like, wait, the music is still playing, because I was always under the impression that it was PlayStation was always streaming audio, because I remember there was this argument that about CD audio versus cartridge audio. It's like, CD quality audio, well, it can sound better, but on cartridge games you can have stuff like Ocarina of Time where the music changes like dynamically in certain situations. You can't do that on CD systems. And at the time I thought, well, yeah, but now I understand obviously that there was still sample based music that was just running on the system, not as streaming audio. So that kind of blew me away. Kind of revised what I thought about the capabilities of CD systems. They certainly are capable of that dynamic audio stuff. Although you didn't see it as often from other developers. I think I think it was more of a Nintendo thing that was not necessarily informed by their hardware. Yeah, I'd love to play it. I mean, it's one of the best looking, best sounding games on the system.
this?
Yeah.
You'd like to replay it? Yeah. I mean, I remember feeling very, very mixed on it the first time I played through. I mean, I love the music so much, and this is one of the few games I remember at the time. I remember downloading the soundtrack before it came out, and was just amazed by it. And when I played it, I think that I have a thing where I hate when you think you're going to be playing as one main character, then it changes it. I hate that kind of thing. So when you like are in Link's body in this, it was like, see, at the time I was like, ugh, you know.
Oh, I loved
it.
That.
Made me not want to play it.
I mean, it kind of let you see the other side of it, and it's like
right. I mean, I understand that.
What happens like really far into the game? It's not like a Metal Gear Solid 2 switcheroo.
Right, but I mean,
I thought it was a really cool twist.
There is, I mean, I can't think of a game that really pulled that I, at least at the time when it happens, that I thought that it made me like the game more.
See, that definitely made me like this game more. I love stuff like that when done right. I mean, I didn't even have a problem with it in Metal Gear Solid 2, but you know.
Well,
something that I've never really known too much is like, you know, to what extent are backgrounds in this game made with like CG renders versus you know, paintings. I kind of wondered the same thing about Final Fantasy 9 because a lot of it kind of looks more handmade than computer generated compared to like Final Fantasy 7 or 8, which looks all computer generated. There's more. Yeah, someone in the chat here is saying I think they're mostly painted. I agree. You know, at the time, like my brain was just thinking, oh, it's all computer generated. But like years later, I looked at it and I'm like, that doesn't. Final Fantasy 9 and Chrono Cross look a little different from Final Fantasy 7 and 8 in terms of whatever medium is used.
I wonder if I can just like
I'm not sure.
equip my end game weapons. I love the battle victory music.
It always, that's something I kind of have a problem with because it is great. It is great. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like it's weird because it's Luca's theme. Like that is, you know, not just a track from, you know, used in whatever manner in the original game. It's Luca's theme. And so it's kind of weird that like a character theme was repurposed for like a general theme. So I guess these are all weapons from the
yeah, my previous playthrough. I don't know. I was in college when I played through this, so
I'm so much more curious now.
What?
Yeah, now you got
to play it now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think they would have reused any of the music assets.
I mean, there's
it's like a remix of it, I guess, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of use of music from the previous game, but like the music that is in this, like I would say is maybe on the whole, like probably better than Chrono Trigger's soundtrack on the whole. Like there's definitely moments in the original Chrono Trigger soundtrack that is incredible, but
I just remember how the Chrono Trigger soundtrack grew on me whenever like I got frustrated with a fight I couldn't win, and I just left it sit there on pause for like hours. I was like, hey, that's kind of catchy.
I mean, it was such a weird situation because I want to say Nobuo Uematsu, you know, started off doing the soundtrack, and some of the pieces in the game are his, but I think I forget if it was health reasons or some other reason, but he kind of went off the project and then went back, and then Mitsuda kind of stepped in, and I don't think he'd really done much of anything before.
Well, that was the best choice they could have made, really, because
Oh, absolutely. But I think, he was kind of thrown into it, you know.
sink or swim, and he
Yeah.
definitely swam.
One thing though I will say about Mitsuda is, generally speaking, I don't think he has the best battle themes.
Right. Yeah, what's his face is like that too, except for in the case of Valkyrie Profile. The guy does the Tales series. I feel like the battle themes are never that great in those, or like in any of his games. So maybe
Tales of Vesperia is weird to me. I've been playing that recently, and that's my first playthrough of it, and I like it, but there are certain things that just I can't quite put my finger on it, but I don't like about it.
Yeah, I've only finished 2 of those games, and Vesperia was good, but I cannot tell you a single thing except for the main character had long hair and carried his sword around on a rope thing or string.
Which
thing.
one was that? Tales of what?
Vesperia. That was the Xbox 360 one.
That's the one that was on Xbox 360 first.
And a lot of people, I think, that consider that one to be the best one. And I played what is the one that came out after that? But it's just I really hated the main character, and now it wasn't Tales of the Abyss, which is I know that has a really bad main character. It was the second one that was on the PS3. I don't remember. There's just so many of those games now that
of the Tales games. I've always wanted to delve more into the series. But sometimes the way that I see people analyze those games and stuff kind of gets on my nerves. I think people get way too into it in some ways.
Yeah, I see GameStack is saying Motoi Sakuraba used to be great, but he's so prolific that I feel like he burnt out his creativity long ago. And we talk about that. I think we talked about that a little bit in one video that we did, and
we talked about in the
soundtrack,
the 30-day game music challenge video,
where a lot of his songs tend to sound the same, and that you called it a cacophony of epic sounds.
Yeah. That's always what I have kind of thought of it as. It's I think of Golden Sun, and it's just kind of dun 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 dun, and then there's a quick shift, and it's just okay, let's make a bunch of just epic sounds, and it's if you've only heard one Sakuraba soundtrack, you might be kind of into it. And then when you hear the next one, it's just kind of
There's a $5 donation from Jonathan G saying, I'm a guitar teacher, and my latest patron guitar tab is a Home Village Arnie from Chrono Cross. I've been teaching it to my students this week. So it's a good song. Is there any PlayStation requests?
Probably Resident Evil 2.
Resident Evil 2?
Or I don't think Resident Evil 2 has resolution switching. The
N64. I could do the N64 version.
The N64 version I think has a sync drop every screen if you have the expansion pack.
I can do it with an EverDrive. I'll pick one more.
Some people are saying Dino Crisis too. That's a good one. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Or no, Dino Crisis 1.
Okay.
Dino Crisis 2, I think, is always 240p, I think.
Excuse me for a sec, guys.
All right. Okay, I'll do Dino Crisis. Dino Crisis.
I'm pretty sure it's a little ways before you.
Isn't Dino Crisis 2 finally getting a new game from Capcom too, or maybe a remake? I remember seeing something about that recently.
I mean, there was all that Capcom leak stuff recently although like no one really seems to know what the validity of it all is.
I mean, they've already gone dinosaurs in space. Like there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to playing that though, because it's just the concept behind it is so stupid. Like it can only be so bad. I know everyone says it's really bad, but it can only be so bad.
Yeah.
Like I just don't know if it can be that bad. I'm looking forward to trying it. The thing I didn't, I actually like Dino Crisis 2 a lot more than Dino Crisis 1.
Well, I think a lot of people do because it's more of a run and gun.
It is, which is surprising because it actually has pre-rendered backgrounds versus this, which is, it's got the 3D perspective, which you would think that this would be more
run and gun, yeah.
Yeah, you'd think this would be more suited to a run gun, but this one is very, I kind of think of it as almost like a Professor Layton-esque sort of game where like all the puzzles are these like
Professor Layton and the Crisis of Dinosaurs.
Yeah, something like that. It like everything is like all these like math puzzles and it's very like logic based stuff that it's like you compare it to Resident Evil puzzles and it's it's like those like you gotta just like put the thing into place and it's whatever. But here like you have to like bring out the pen and paper and everything and
this wasn't much of a fight. I don't think these guards
it's not what I'm looking for in my dinosaur shooting game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, the hole is nice and clean, but I still say you.
We need to. I guess we kind of vowed to use that one clip from this game as often as we can, whenever it made sense. Where what do we use it in? In the sharp scale video where she's like, "That's disgusting." Is that what we used it in the sharp scale video? Where if something looks bad, it's always like Regina going, "That's disgusting."
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, we've only used it the one time, but I just laughed so hard at that part of that video when you put it there.
That's just one of those things that I feel like needs to show up and more. So the big thing with this at the time was like, oh, you can walk and shoot at the same time, or walk and aim.
Okay. Oh, can you?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
But can you actually shoot?
You can't
or
shoot.
Or she stop when you shoot?
Yeah, she stops when you shoot. But it was baby steps, okay?
No. I mean, I was always
at least you can
really
be at the ready. Now
I was always really annoyed, like when Resident Evil 5 came out, and people were like, "Oh, this is so outdated. You can't run and shoot." Everything had to be Gears of War.
Yeah.
And it was just like, come on.
Gears of War is
but this was the style of game for its time. Like you look at Oshimishu, and you look at like Resident Evil, and you look at like Capcom was like, this was the format that they were putting games into at the time.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it was, and with good reason. I mean, Onimusha was very good looking game. That's been a long time since I played that. I should play the remaster that I got for $7.
Yeah, I mean, I still haven't decided whether I want to play the remaster or just play the original version. But I did install the remaster on my
I often find myself resorting to the original versions, even if the remasters are better.
I find that's very much the
it's
case.
weird. Like, I mean, it kind of depends on the game for me. You know, I was just saying last week, you know, I kind of committed to playing the PS1 versions of like the Crash Bandicoot series, the Spyro series. Like, I don't know why I feel compelled to play those in their original context, even though there are remasters. Like, I actually just installed on my PS5 and tried it out last night. Uh, the Crash trilogy because it's free on PlayStation Plus.
Oh.
It's like, you know, it looks nice, but it's also kind of weird. Like I don't know. Like some remakes, it's definitely like, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and play the remake. Others, it's like, I don't know. I mean, you know, TJ Dorsey saying nostalgia goggles try. I mean, the thing is, though, I didn't play those games back in the day. Like, I might have played a little Crash 1, like one level.
Look at that. See, this game, the switch is like instantaneous. It's like you...
Oh, there's like
no...
Like, it looks like there's a black frame when you go back to gameplay, but when you go into the menu, it almost looks like they aren't even putting a frame or a fade or anything.
No, it should be almost instant. Now, I will tell you though that the seamless resolution switching, like, it works 99.9% of the time, and occasionally you will hit a hiccup with it, but it will recover extremely fast, and it's really good. But games like this, I think, really show it off really well in between that menu switch.
Yeah,
it's so interesting how, you know, relatively close to the HD era, these games were coming out and, you know, having these high resolution menus.
Yeah.
And you would think that someone within the company would have like kind of been aware, like, ooh, this could be a problem soon. But you know what? They might have known too that like all of the digital video chips out there were going to be treating 240p as 480i anyway.
Oh, here it is. Hang on.
That's disgusting.
I just had to turn it up for it.
He's like ripped in two, and she's just like, huh, well, that's disgusting. That's so good. It's just like
so casual.
Like, just saying it. Just saying it like it is. That's disgusting.
I mean, she is unfazed. There's a $1.99 donation from Brooks. Thank you. Saying, when are we getting a Mr. video, guys? And I had planned on doing it in December, but I feel like I'm going to do it in January. That's going to be like my main January thing. Mainly because I wanted to call it like the Mr. in this specific year. And if I came out with it in December and said the Mr. in 2020, it would be, people would think it was outdated as soon as it turned to 2021.
Yeah.
But
I was going to say, I thought you guys were just waiting until we were done with the GBS AIO so I could restock my store.
Well, and of course, you know, I do Mr. videos, but I'm actually probably going to start putting my channel on pause to focus on the AIO. So.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's so much stuff coming up for the Mr. too that is exciting that will... That's why I was thinking it'd be fun to do like a yearly video, like maybe every January. You know, I could kind of go over what came the year before.
The Mr. moves so fast, and so much stuff happens, and a lot of little, like, really extremely detailed stuff. Like if you look at the color fix for RGB video for the TurboGrafx 16, you know, a bunch of the Mr. devs worked on that, and Risha and many others. But like, people don't realize like what a big deal is that is, because now for the first time ever you can really see correct RGB video for TurboGrafx 16 core, and which you won't even get out of a real TurboGrafx 16,
right?
Which is kind of wild.
I mean, that was kind of talked about. I mean, Try, didn't you put a mention of that in like the new Analog Frontiers that's coming out?
Oh, the composite colors. Or the composite
this is the RGB, correct RGB output.
Right, like the YUV palette was converted into RGB
Yes.
because the native RGB palette has some colors there either the same value in RGB or too similar to see the difference.
Hmm.
And that's like, yeah, like I wrote this whole thing in Analog Frontiers Part 3 kind of last minute when I learned of that, because I thought that's such an interesting example of how there is still work to be done, because people in general think emulation has been, perfect for 10 years or something. And the reality of it is, here are some colors on a relatively major gaming platform that you could not see on emulation. Like, and no one cared to fix this until this year. Like, that there are still things, but just using that as an illustration, if people overlooked that, there are definitely still things that are not perfectly preserved, and there's that's kind of a big message. Artemio, brings that up a lot. I mean, the whole project is, I'm so thankful that we were able to get Artemio kind of last minute for the whole thing, because he adds so much to it.
But there are so many little like updates from Mister where like you have things just like this, and there are all these monumental things, and unless you're like really well versed in every single system out there, you don't realize what a big deal a lot of these things are. And even from things like having like adjustable resolutions for different computer systems, or I mean just the whole list of things that Mister works on. Like everything might not check the box for everybody, but there are different people, and it seems like week after week, like this new feature comes out that checks the box for them for what they're using Mister. And you want to talk about like use cases. I mean, just between all the Amiga guys and all the Atari guys and all the Commodore guys, and I mean, and then you have console gaming guys. And I mean, it's just ridiculous how many different use cases there are with the Mister. And just the fact that it will do RGB video output, it'll do VGA video output, HDMI video output for all of these different systems and getting the timings right. I mean, it's just amazing. I really do think like Sorge is probably one of the most underrepresented movers and shakers for retro gaming that's happening right now with the Mister project. And many of the other Mister developers that work and contribute stuff. It just, the project moves so fast, and I only cover the arcade numbers. I mean, if you look at what Jotego's done with CPS stuff, like it's amazing. Even Ace in the channel here with his cores. I mean, it's just really, really amazing. All these different people coming together, and all the changes that happen at Mister so fast. I mean, just that platform grows exponentially quick.
There's some serious reverse engineering and decapping and all that kind of stuff happening. It's crazy.
Yeah, you look at Vertex Neo Geo stuff. I mean, like, and even the other chips that Vertex decapping. I mean, it's just amazing.
There was a
good.
while back a $5 super chat from Bubba D Matt. Saying, wow, just got done at the gym and caught this. Hey, would this setup work to downscale retro PC like Windows 98 or DOS to work on a consumer CRT via component?
If you have 480p output from your video source, it should work. That's a big should.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, a retro PC, I mean, a lot of that might be outputting like 75 hertz or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're bound to run into problems just because of how the video signals are. One of the things that I've been wanting to do with the downscaling is the Mason emulator has those Zelda reskins, Metroid reskins, and what's the other game that they have that's reskins? Castlevania. And they look really good. And I've been wanting to output like a 480p signal to the GBS AIO so that I can downscale it for that. But it's one of those things that I haven't had time to run through it yet.
Yeah, I kind of want to put together a retro PC. I mean, I'm not like a big PC gamer, but I do kind of want to I've got
Oh,
a few computers that I might have, some potential donor parts.
okay,
or at
so
least
I'm gonna do
starting parts.
this. Is this gonna work? Let me see if I can do a dual stream with this here. The OSSC, where you see.
You'll probably never see the OSSC as quickly as this game switches screens.
Yeah, it's a heavy menu game.
Well, just even going in
Well,
between
not
every.
just the menu. There's a interruption between.
Yeah, for every scene.
Every screen. Yep.
Oh, this
I've
guy.
never played
It's Kendo.
through the N64 version of this game, but I've always meant to.
Do you own it?
I do. I mean, it's been a relatively. You know what's funny? I put off getting it for a long time because I never found like the right quality of cart for the right price. But then like eventually I realized that
By the time I noticed
This guy's voice,
I
it's
think
like
I may have
obviously slowed
misjudged.
down, like that's pitch shifted. Oh, sorry, like his voice is like obviously pitch shifted in a way that like makes him sound hilarious. Oh, see right there, you can just see.
but I
forgot the.
I think I had passed up on a lot of carts that were probably fine because the background of the label on the cart has like sort of some parts in the black that look a little like grayish, and I thought that it was just kind of like not a great looking cart, but then when you look closely it's actually like, I forget, it's like faded out zombies or something like that. It's actually part of the design. And so, but I just thought it kind of looked like a worn out label. So I probably passed on a lot of decent copies of it.
It's been a long time since I played through this version too. It feels surprisingly good with the N64 controller, at least with the Retro Fighters pad.
Well, you could play this game, I'm sure, with a real N64 controller with the D-pad on. I'm sure the D-pad would work. I mean, if I were to play through it, that's how I would probably play it with the D-pad. I enjoy using. Because I doubt that it has true analog control. Does it?
This?
Yeah. Does that have
no, it doesn't seem to. I mean, it's like there's definitely like some purplish for sure. Like I'm not sure if it's like a. I don't think I have any loose connections because. I mean, it looks fine on the OSSC, which is feeding it like from the same source.
Voltar is pointing out that it looks like the stairs flicker. Is this running at 480i? I forget. Like, is it needlessly running at 480i on these background graphics that I'm pretty sure are 240p assets?
Yes, it is. It looks like it.
But again, yeah, I mean, obviously the colors are different between the two. I don't know if, Rama has any greater control in the firmware to adjust, how it's interpreting the colors.
See, it makes me wonder.
But, the point here isn't, which one is sharper, which one has better colors. The point here is, here is a pretty good upscaling solution that is not, having, rampant frame drops and stuff,
Well, you guys are giving me a whole nother rabbit hole to chase down to try to figure out why the colors are different and if we can do anything about it. But that may be for future revisions of the AIO and the firmware that we use with it. Hopefully we can do something and make some kind of improvement.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess it's possible it could have something to do with the HDMI. I mean, aren't there on the original, on the base GBS, aren't there some like pots on the motherboard?
Yeah, so one of the things we did is we completely removed and
'Cause-
bypassed those pots, so
Oh.
that we don't get any resistance caused to attenuate the signal in the wrong direction.
So is that AIO removing them, or is that the base GBSC removing them?
That's removed on the GBS board itself. Like that's a physical process that we do before we add the AIO board.
Right. But what I mean is that part of like Rama's specifications for any GBSC, or is that part of yours?
That's kind of part of ours. You could leave them on in any scenario, but they're going to cause more attenuation than what's intended for the GBS control firmware to work.
I mean, it's more right if I do that. If I mess with the oversampling, but
So I was going to say the things that would probably have the most impact here would be like the auto gain, and if we can get Rama to break out some settings per RG and B channel.
I mean, I think that would help a lot. Just having settings that it's not exactly fixed. It's more like just more greenish.
Well, I was going to say the other part, though, is that the cheap HDMI converter solutions, realistically, like I wanted to engineer and get in there a real HDMI solution, but it just wasn't cost effective for this project at this point. It was infinitely cheaper just to use an off-the-shelf HDMI converter.
So this is with the auto gain on right here.
Well, some of them add tints in certain directions, and that'll vary from unit to unit. If we notice one in production that's like an outlier and just looks bad, then I'm not going to ship that out.
Right. Because
So
I mean,
this is like has to do with the gain.
Yeah, and Voltar was asking too if different capture cards are employed here, and they definitely are. And like,
I mean, I can hang on. I can.
Definitely weirdness in how some of the cards like interpret like limited range signals and converts like space.
I'll try
there could definitely be some weirdness going on. I mean, if we were to do like a real comparison, we would definitely want to record both items on the same card.
Well, that was going to be my next question is, are you sure that the capture card was set to limited mode? Because that looks a lot like the dark color issues I noticed whenever my monitor was improperly interpreting it as full range instead of limited. So it's always worth double checking that.
Okay, so this is me. I'm feeding it to a different capture card. I'm feeding it to the Avram Media now.
But it looks like it's definitely interpreting the range wrong because it's way too dark.
I was going to say that got way darker.
Yeah, it looks like your range setting is not correct.
If interpreting limited range as full range, it would look washed out.
Right. Well, it is washed out on my monitor.
Well, but it looks way too dark on the stream. Voltar says that the color ramp has changed completely. It's no longer pushing red. So maybe that was a capture card issue, but now we know that, but now the range is not correct. Like it's definitely crushing the blacks.
Yeah, Electron Ash is pointing it out. Like you can definitely see the 16 versus 235 for where it starts black and where it starts white in the color range.
Mm-hmm. I had a similar issue when I was streaming the RetroTink 2X Pro, because I was hooking it up with I was I had two things going into it, and that like the RetroTink doesn't really like that in general.
I'll see if I can.
So,
okay, so this is back at the other one. I can try different. No, see that's it's set to limited.
you know, and another thing that you know, I find though when you capture card settings sometimes are weird in OBS. Like if you
They
change
are.
limited in the OBS settings, you sometimes have to do it like an actual capture card settings. Like it.
I find that too, and I have to leave OBS and go set it in something else, and then come back to OBS.
Yeah, or you can launch you can launch like the device settings from OBS, but if you're just in like that basic settings window on OBS, it tends to not really work.
Well, this looks a little bit better if I change the video format.
Well, another thing that sometimes like I would find that I could get my GBS control stuck in these weird states where stuff just wouldn't look right until like I restored defaults. And that's always like one of my go-to attempts to fix it if something got wonky. Like,
should I try it?
Just, like kind of rebooting your PC. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so if I go to development and I go to what is it?
Go to reset defaults. It's the
right.
It's on the very last tab.
Right. Reset defaults plus restart. Okay, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. And then you're probably going to want to go back to 1080p again.
Right. Here we go. Is it gonna want to reconnect to my Wi-Fi and everything again?
No, it will not.
Okay.
It should stay. It'll stay connected to your Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it just resets like all.
Oh,
your
look at that! It's really green.
Like if you move stuff around, it'll fix that.
You know, one thing too, that I could see being useful.
Go ahead, Corey, and put it back to 1080p. There you go.
Okay, so now I'm in. Like, this is just the basic, how it defaulted. I mean, look how green it is. But if I go to oversampling and hit that, I guess it's not doing much. It gets really green now.
I would try doing the gain control, the automatic gain control.
Okay. That just makes it way greener.
When it chooses settings, does it choose them based on like any sort of image content when
kind of. So it tries to determine based on the video source what it thinks is going to be best.
But could the colors in the scene possibly throw that off?
That's a tough one. I'd have to look into with Rama.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you went to a more white screen because like that's something I'd want to ask Rama as well.
I see that Ace in the chat is saying that's the heavy green push my GBS 8200 has. So I wonder if it's like a thing that.
It's weird how it only shows in some places though. Like,
so if I go here, okay, so like right there,
it's definitely a lot worse than before you turned it off.
Right. So if I do the automatic gain on this screen, now like the blacks at least look a lot blacker. So now, I mean, it's not quite as green as it was, but I wonder if the only way to truly do it is to get a SMPTE bars screen, which I could do by going to the 240p test suite and doing the automatic.
Yeah, that'd probably be a good way to dial it in.
And Ace is saying color tints are inconsistent between GBS 8200s.
And I agree with that.
They definitely are.
I mean, you gotta keep in mind the base of this is a pretty cheap but useful device. But that's why.
This is a hack that works too well. That's what it is.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's why we say it's not reference quality. This was kind of like a whole bunch of hacks hacked together, and we just kind of made it a lot better than it was.
But that's why you're able. That's why you're able to make a new product out of this because they're so readily available. It's like there's so many of this. That's why Rama did the GBS controllers because there's so many of these. Out there, they're so easy to obtain for so cheap. Like, can we do something better with this? And you're right. It's not like this from the ground up thing. There's definitely going to be limitations. But I think when you keep in mind that, and then what it has turned into, it definitely offers things that other related devices don't.
So if you look at this screen,
This screen looks great.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find. I need to get the N64.
This is one of those weird resolution screens too for the Nintendo 64, by the way.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, this is not. This menu, I think, is it's like 500, and it's got a weird resolution.
Well, they used to be interlaced, but the recent updates made it 240p. Let me see if can anybody. I guess I need to find the N64 version of the 240p test suite.
It would have been their tools and service test carts.
Right. I mean, I assumed that it would be in there, but it's not.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So, I thought it would be. Maybe it's just.
Oh, Corey Rears is saying we missed the PayPal.
Okay.
Sorry about that. When they don't pop up in Super Chat, I have a hard time seeing them. I should probably get Corey to give me access to whatever window he looks at when we miss stuff.
Yeah. Was it a PayPal? Was there like a message with it? Somebody.
It was from Rears the Blood.
Was it a long time ago or just recently?
I mean, I'm assuming during this stream. Rears, can you just paste in the chat what it was?
Yeah, it's not showing up. I'm looking at the Streamlabs. I'm not seeing it here.
About 15 minutes ago.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know why it's not showing up in the Streamlabs. Either way, let me just find the 240p test suite here.
Is there no 240p suite? I thought there was.
There's got to be.
I'll tell you if I got one in my ROM set here in a second.
I'm not seeing it on the.
Oh, Rears was asking about Saga Frontier Remastered announcement. Side they're adding in the
64.
Is the stream still up? Because it just started.
Yeah, it started buffering.
Uh-oh.
I was gonna say I still hear you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but the YouTube stuff.
It looks like we're back.
Is it back?
So yeah, Rears. Hopefully y'all can hear me now, because I was let me read Rears's comment again, saying it was asking about the Saga Frontier Remastered announcement. Was excited they're adding in the cut chapter and missing content. So what I wanted to ask then is that so that new chapter, that is a known thing to have been cut out of the original game? Because if so, that's pretty cool, because I always have really mixed feelings about new chapters and new bonus dungeons and stuff added to like the Final Fantasy 1 on Game Boy Advance and all that kind of stuff. I always feel like it just feels really tacked on. But if it was something that was planned for the original game, that actually sounds really cool. I have not played through the game. I mean, I've just like I've actually just tinkered around with it a little bit, but
see, that's why I like to take it down a little bit.
It looked like it was pretty faithful to the look of the original. I mean, especially when you consider the 16-bit Saga games, how they look in those remasters. It's got a different look. This looked pretty faithful for that. That's when we were talking earlier about, in some cases I'm more inclined to play the original, in some cases I want to play the remastered. In this case, it's kind of like, I don't know. I'd have to think about whether I'll play my PS1 disc that I have and haven't played through yet, or that. But it's definitely an intriguing game. I really like the style. It's got, it's got that early PlayStation Square vibe, and I kind of like it.
So if it is possible to get into the like the individual color settings, and if they're like an option maybe for a contrast, because I think that would help like the black levels a little bit too.
I know that I've talked to Rama about it and filed a bug report on his well, not a bug report, but a feature request on his GitHub. And at one point in time, he said it was something he would look into in the future. Like I said, I know that you can kind of adjust them based if you like serial terminal into the firmware, and you can kind of like bump them up, bump them down. But it's something that may come about, or maybe somebody else might decide to take a look at the firmware and add it in the future.
If I'm not mistaken, are you not supposed to see the different variations in the black bars in the lower right?
No, I can see them on my PVM.
I know, but are you not supposed to?
Well, the thing is, like some of those blacks in the lower right, they're kind of like they have a kind of a greenish tint to them.
On your PVM?
No. Just because I'm looking at both of them.
They don't really look on the stream. They don't look too green.
That's true. Like that very well could be my settings of the on my TV as well.
Yeah, I mean
I mean it looks a lot better in the capture here.
There's most definitely probably some variation in the capture card. For sure.
Well, this is a one chip. Let me switch to my.
Yeah, something I was also going to say earlier. I started to say it. And I don't think I finished saying it. Was I could definitely see cases where people, even though you've got the HDMI out on this, I could definitely see cases where people, it might be easy for them to run it through the OSSC. If they've already got an OSSC, run it into the VGA input, and and then you could do other things with the signal from there. I mean, I could definitely see use cases for that as well. I don't know from there, like how would that affect the. Like in that case, you would probably be dealing with full range, right? Because the D sub output would be a full range signal, essentially, right? So in that case, if you were like dealing with full range in your capture setup, that could be something that people might want to consider. There was a while back a 499 super chat from Retro Dream. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Saying great guests. Amazing to see the hard work from so many in the retro scene. I'm definitely getting one.
Oh,
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, whatever you've done has definitely changed, I think, the overall color profile, because the colors don't look as rich on this as.
When I reset the system, it doesn't delete my presets though, does it?
No, it does not.
Let's try loading the preset. Oh, it looked good for a second. I got real bright. I mean, that looks a lot better. Like loading the preset looks.
I'm waiting on the stream to see it. Oh yeah, that looked really good for a second.
Oh, and back to the 240p test suite, there is no version for the N64.
That's surprising. That is really surprising.
I want to think Artemio told me he was like working on one at some point, but it was difficult.
A lot of those, I mean, like the NES one is like not done by him. Like other people kind of just like pick it up and have made versions. So I'm sure it's only a matter of time. So I kind of see you kind of see the screen move a little bit here and there. Like, is that because of the jitter?
That one, it could be. Are you playing on a Sega Genesis? You're playing on a Sega Genesis?
Super Nintendo.
Super Nintendo. Is your Sync Strike on?
Oh, let me do that.
Yeah, I would toggle it and see what happens.
Oh, we toggled it and killed it.
I think my stream is.
Your stream is not as has not. But I'm feeding a component.
It's a bit behind. I need to reload it.
Does the Sync Strike affect the component?
When you say you're feeding it component, what are you feeding it? What is your signal chain?
It's going out RGB into a G-SCART, and one of the outputs of the G-SCART goes into a RGB to comp transcoder.
So that's the part that I don't know. I don't know what that part of the signal is doing.
It's just like
normally when I hook a Super Nintendo to it, to the GBSC AIO, we need to put on that sync strike. So I'm not sure how the signal's moving through that one part.
Yeah. So I mean, you're doing a number of color conversions here, actually. So
yeah, but I mean, I was still, I mean, like the stuff that was happening with Army of Zin, with Maximo, like that was, the colors were weird in that too, but that was just like a direct component. I mean, I could try. I could just grab a. I could just run a SCART in and see if
that'd probably be the best way to go about it, if you can.
Yeah,
I mean, definitely, if you were like making a true comparison.
Oh,
you would
absolutely.
That extra
The reason I'm doing it this way is because it allows me to just like use any system in my setup without having to.
Right.
To like run multiple
There's
cables.
So many different use cases, and the way that people set things up and the way that people do everything, it's almost impossible to accommodate everything. The setup that you've had tonight works really. It appears to have worked really well, though, Corey.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely trust the RGB to comp. I mean, Mike tends to do is like his stuff is very well made.
Yeah, Mike's stuff is awesome. I mean, he's definitely on top of it.
Yeah, I'm really curious what's causing that, though. You guys are going to give me a whole bunch of rabbit holes to chase down.
I mean, it's, for some reason we like excel at that because I don't know what it is. Like sometimes we just.
Well, I just think that
like
there's so many use cases. There's so many use cases, and everybody's stuff's different. We're dealing with 20-year, 30-year-old hardware.
Exactly.
You'd like to think that like it was all in spec and that things always were, but it's just not the case.
Yeah. I mean, or else there would never be any need for updates ever. You know, if you just.
I've said this more than once. Some of these systems, I'm even amazed they can get a picture to the CRT after learning some of the stuff I've learned recently. It's like, wow, this stuff actually works.
But yeah, I'm guessing that little interruption we're seeing occasionally is probably...
Well, hang on a second. You know what? It very well could... Hang on. It could be all me. Okay, now I had the one chip transient fixes off. Sometimes if you have like the one chip transient fixes on the FX Pack Pro, it will cause some issues. But I mean, I'm
actually not seeing any issues on this FX Pro.
I was seeing a couple.
It's
little
like a little jump here and there. Let me try.
Yeah, it's a little blip.
Let me try it
in the game, but I'm not seeing them on this menu.
Hang on, let me try something else.
What I was wondering is, like, is it just occurring on the capture, or are you seeing it on your monitor, too?
Yeah, I mean, they may both behave differently. I mean, just like, some people with RetroTinks don't have drops between 240p and 480i on their particular TV. Some of these devices are within, I guess, the range of tolerance for certain displays, but yeah.
So this is a one chip system using HD Retrovision cables. This is the SNES Mini or Junior.
Oh, okay. So you're using straight component now.
Yes.
No conversion.
This will be interesting. I've only tested this a little bit with a Super Nintendo, so I'm anxious to see what happens here.
My brightness switch on that cable if it needed to go one way or the other.
It should be correct because it's been on this system for a while. Oh, I'm dying right out of the gate.
There was $2 from old John Perry G JPEG. Would you guys say that the DC HDMI mod is king for DC snobs? Well, I mean, I suspect the ultimate DC snobs are maybe also VGA monitor snobs. But if you are not dealing with a VGA monitor, I mean, I would say so. I mean, for my taste, I think so. But the thing is, it's the Dreamcast is an extraordinarily dithered console, and so it really just depends on what your tolerance for dithering is. If your tolerance for dithering is high, like me, and I would say the DC digital is where it's at. You know, I finally got mine, you know, last week along with the PS1 digital, so it's a big new world for me with that. The difference is I decided to get the DC digital in, you know, a system with a regular GD-ROM drive, so I'm only limited to my physical Dreamcast collection right now, which is relatively small, bigger than my Saturn collection certainly though. But you know, I could always put a thing in it if I needed to. But you know, the PS1 digital is in a X station unit, so that's exciting.
So I'm not getting any of those graphical glitches.
I see that, and like I'm kind of surprised that it was causing hiccups like that.
There's something in the signal chain that's not between the video source and between what's going on. There's something that's different.
I'm gonna want to ask you about this off stream later.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I can try different tests. I mean, unless it was just has something to do with my SCART cable. I mean, which is entirely possible. But it's a retro access, you know, shielded cable.
Yeah, that's what I use here in the shop too. Nothing but retro access. So
yeah, it very well. I mean, it's a original console, so or a 2-chip.
You never know. There's so many weirdness things to scalers.
Seriously.
And people will be like, "Yeah, this thing works great for me," and you'll hear that from like 100 people, and then you'll go try it, and on your system for whatever, you're cursed. Zero actually has an RGB modded RGB modded NES of mine that does weird stuff, and nobody can figure out why. And he's not the first guy to look at it either. So
that 240p test suite like main page, like the colors looked really good to me on that.
Yeah,
like they looked correct. There was before I lose track of super chats, there was a 20 pesos super chat from Eric Masters with no message, but thank you.
Thank you.
Let me make sure I didn't miss any others.
I'm going to try to use the auto gain. I'm just waiting for it.
There's a $2 super chat from Apocalyptic Minister saying, looks great. Is it one? This is 120 to 150, right? I mean, I think that is possibly the range you're looking at, but you said you didn't have a price nailed down yet.
Okay, a game with a vibrant palette.
Is that right? What you know? I mean, I know you weren't announcing a price.
Andrew, you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh.
I'm sorry, did I miss something?
There was a super chat asking, this is 120 to 150. Is that right?
It'll be somewhere in there. It might be. I would say it's going to be around the price of the OSSC and the RetroTink products. We felt that was a good price to recover the R&D plus covering the cost of the GBSC, the boards, the work that Zero himself's going to do to put it in there.
I was playing this game just yesterday, and I discovered that the nice, supposedly super nice BNC to S video long cable that I bought to run from my Extron to my Koryu
is bad.
Very tricky.
So this is a pretty vibrant looking game. It looks really good. Like all the colors look perfect on this.
Yeah, it does. Like Axelay looked a little dull, but maybe that game's colors are just that way. I'm not. You know,
I'd say play Sonic. Sonic is a vibrant color game.
Yeah.
If you got a Genesis around.
I mean, within the realm of Super Nintendo, like looking at this, like this looks really right. I mean, Axelay, like it's possible it's just kind of a duller, darker game, and I've not played it enough to really know what it could look like, to be honest.
And I do have the auto gain on right now, so and that should automatically change from scene to scene.
It should. I don't know that it always does, and that's my experience with it.
There was a $5 super chat from Jonathan G. Saying, let's take a second to appreciate how awesome it is to have 500 people watching live streamed hardware upscaled 240p gaming content in 2020. Cheers.
It is awesome.
It's super wild. I never would have dreamed someone would do such a thing.
I'll grab.
They was asking, does Rama get cost from each GBSC unit sold? I mean, no, I don't think. I mean, it's an open source project, but like you said, on the bottom of your unit, you've got buy Rama a coffee.
Yeah, so we attribute Rama on each one of the units, and I suspect that I'll probably throw Rama some loot for his hard work, because I want him to come back to the project, and I want him to keep improving it. So, and I've given to Rama in the past small amounts for it. I mean, you look at everything that he's into, man. Just between how many people have used his PlayStation 2 emulator and just the GBSC project. I mean, the guy has really done a lot for the community. If you haven't, you should really think about giving to his buy him a coffee website.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of blowing my mind what all he's has hand in. I mean, it's just such a wide range of stuff. It's absolutely crazy.
And we've also put all over our webpage and our Facebook pages and whatnot for, that we attribute the firmware to him. So we're building on the backs of giants. That's all I can say. And we're itty bitty.
Axelay.
What's that?
I never considered Axelay, but I guess that it's fewer syllables, so maybe in some ways it's easier to say.
I always said Axelay. But I think like growing up, I said Sonic. I always said Axelay growing up. But yeah, I mean, this looks awesome. I mean, all the colors look perfect here.
And you should have done Sonic 2 so you can show the resolution changes for the two-player mode.
Let's do that then.
I think it starts if you watch the attract mode for it. That's the first thing it goes into for the attract mode. But I always thought that Sonic was a great game to test for colors. I mean, everything really pops in the Sonic universe.
I saw a show say that the whites looked slightly blue on his screen. I always tend to go for, like, on screen calibration, I always tend to go for like a cooler white. I mean, not like a cold white, but like, I would tend toward more having it slightly lean blue on the whites rather than like yellow. That's just me. There was a $2 super chat from John Perry G again, saying, Try, can you explain what dithering would be for me? I mean, dithering, honestly, probably the Wikipedia article on it might be the best explainer. I mean, there's all kinds of dithering. Like Corey was just a bit ago, or I don't know if he's playing the demo or if he's actually playing this.
This is the demo, but you'll notice when it switches back to it, there's no drop.
No,
even when it switched to it.
And that's like a weird thing. Like even like everything struggles with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the bushes in this game are dithered.
It's like a pattern of alternating colors.
Well, you're not in the level, but on the title screen, like anywhere you see these checkerboard dots, like that's dithering.
Yeah, it's like alternating colors to make it look like shading.
On the Genesis, because the composite signal is so bad, the developers were able to play with that to create like fake transparencies and other sorts of effects, shading, shadows, things like that. Last week I played Spyro on the PS1 digital. That's a 512 pixel wide game, which allows them to have like sort of really high frequency alternating patterns in the colors to make it look like there's more shading on a CRT or something. It's kind of laid bare when you're looking at a more high quality signal.
Oh, I just saw the.
Some people say it's like against artistic intent, but it doesn't bother me. It's just part of the texture of the image to me.
I just saw the screen tearing.
I saw it too, but I've seen it so infrequently though.
Yeah, I mean that's it's the first time I've seen it.
It doesn't seem to be happening on like a regular basis, but the clock mod that's going to be on, I guess, the final shipping units does not have that.
So just I think some people, it's right on you probably can't read that there, but it's right on the bottom of every single one of these GBSC AIOs for RAMA.
Oh yeah, for the donation. Yeah.
Yep. And it's also all over our website. We put it down at the bottom in the footer. We also put it up at the top. We say, hey, this is great firmware. So
yeah, I think the issue is like it's just that people aren't like it's not spelled out what RAM is getting out of it. I fully intend to donate some of my if you want to call it profit on this first batch to him, and once I take over and start to do round 2, that amount will increase because that profit isn't going to be split between a few people.
And I'll be leaving the project at that point. Like my whole goal was to bring this out and to make it open source, and after that, let makers like Zero himself take over. So like I'm only in it for this first round, get my R&D back, and then I'm out. So this wasn't something that I wanted to like spend the rest of my life, supporting and doing and putting the AIO. What I wanted to do was put a product in people's hands that was relatively affordable and that took care of a lot of the difficult things that people have with setting up a GBSC AIO.
And I think that's there's something to be said for that. Knowing what the end point is. We've got so many projects. I mean, we've been talking about a lot lately. It's just like, oh my gosh, there's just so many projects hanging over our head, and it's just like, when does it end?
You have to decide where your paths want to go and where you think you can make a value and an impact. Yeah. And like my value and my impact was, hey, I had this idea in my head. I reached out to Jacob Proctor, who is Tinkerplunk, and said, hey, could you draw me up a board that looks like this and does these things? And we kind of talked about it for a little bit. We had several reiterations of it. And then I reached out to Zero himself and said, hey, I have this board. I know you're a maker. Do you think you guys could like do, like 250 of these so we can put them out in the community, and then maybe other people can build up on it? Because it's not something that I'm going to be an expert on. Like I'm not getting ready to quit my day job to make AIOs. Like this is just something that I had an idea for. I thought it was cool. I believed in it enough that I wanted to bring it to market, and then reached out to the right people to help me. And it's just kind of been amazing pulling everybody together, even Rama hopping on and helping with it. And it's just something to be more accessible for the community. Like, and after that, I'm done with it, and I do hope lots of other people start making. I feel like the GBSC project overall has been underrepresented for the value that it has. And, I think it's an amazing, piece of software product, combination of hardware. And I think it can do a lot for the community, and that this type of little scaler will check the boxes for a lot of people.
There was a question a bit up higher in the chat from Jasper Byrne saying, sorry if this has been asked, but does the GBS get around the cause of image retention and interlace mode you see on the OSSC with most modern displays? I don't know if I would say most modern displays, but it's definitely behavior that happens in a lot of IPS-based displays. And yes, it won't do that because the OSSC is doing Bob deinterlacing, which is definitely going to cause that retention very quickly. Whereas this uses motion adaptive deinterlacing, which you're not going to have that with motion adaptive deinterlacing. So So no. Although Corey, didn't you say that your IPS screen, didn't you change a setting in that and it doesn't?
Oh,
get the
my Game Boy
retention?
Advance one?
Hmm?
In the Game Boy Advance?
No. I thought your IPS monitor TV or whatever it is, that had like the crazy OSSC retention.
I think it has something to do with like overdrive, it's called, or in some monitors it might be called like fast response time. If you turn that off, it should like help that retention. But I mean, I've only found it to be a problem like in computer monitors. I haven't found it to be as big of a thing in like TVs.
Yeah, Ace in the chat is saying that image rotation from flicker patterns is more common than you think on LCDs, not just IPS panels. I've seen it happen on a VA panel as well. I mean,
I'm terrified of it happening for some reason on an OLED, which is completely entirely different technology, and it shouldn't even happen on that. But like,
I've never heard of it happening on OLED.
I know. It's just one of those things where I'm like, you see a lot of screen tearing in this. This game moves at such a speed that just like makes it show up a lot.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Yeah, I mean the OLED shouldn't retain the flicker patterns, but I mean it's just something about it that just terrifying to me. Of like doing something to it. You know, I want 8-Bit Duke to know that I played this specifically for him. I saw him talking about Lunar, and I was like, I'm gonna play Lunar. And he's like, yeah, I saw him. He's like, oh, look at that, 55 hours.
Version?
What's that?
Is Duke a fan of the Sega CD version or the PS1?
I bet he's a fan of the Sega CD version. I bet he's not a fan of the save system. Like, I don't think anybody's a fan of the save system in the Sega.
Well, that's a fault of working designs and not the original.
Oh,
game.
Absolutely, 100%. 100%.
So it's coming up in the chat real quick because there was a little bit of tearing, and the version that you guys have does not have the clock mod.
Right.
But we have just added the clock mod to all of the production versions of the AIO. We actually placed the order this week, and it's being shipped to us for all the clocks that we needed to purchase to make it happen. And actually GameSack helped us get to the decision that, hey, this is something we need to add in there for this to work. So
that's cool. So he was having a real problem with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a problem for, any number of combination of people. I mean, it seems like it might be a common enough need. Now, are those coming to you all like?
No, they're putting them together themselves.
Or you have to do them by hand?
So I'll let Zero himself handle this because he's the maker here.
Yeah, so the clock mods are coming directly to me, and me and guys in my workshop are basically, we've narrowed down the easiest way to make it happen, from like jigs to like solder wires to the clock mod and pre-bend them, and then like an adhesive to hold the clock mod on the heat sink so it won't melt. And then it's kind of like fine console mod work. You just got to get it done. Like there's no easy mass production way to do it. You just got to do it.
Well, the AIO board does have pads for the SDC and FDL lines, which helps a little bit. So it makes it easier just to drop some wires on that instead of soldering like to the GBS board.
What's interesting is that like for this 240p content, it doesn't have the same dither blending effect that it was 240p for not Dynamite Deca. I mean, it is Dynamite Deca, but what Die Hard Arcade. I don't know if that was just like a higher horizontal resolution that I think was lending to that dither blending. And not that I'm complaining because I don't care about dithering at all, but it does seem that like it might take a certain horizontal resolution for that effect to take place. I'm assuming this Lunar is probably a 320 pixel wide game like most Genesis games, but it could be 256. Yeah. I don't know.
I'm gonna play a little NHL 94. I've systematically used every single arranged version of music from this game in videos over the last year.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, there's only like 3 arranged tracks on the CD, and I've used all of them.
It's funny. I come back to 2020 baseball for the Neo Geo like that. That's one of my like weird sports games that I like to use music from for things.
Who's my team? It's gonna be the Sabres.
It's so cool seeing that FMV fill like the whole vertical space. Like when it comes to Sega CD, FMV, I'm kind of used to like a more constrained view, like Night Trap and Road Avenger.
I love Night Trap. I play it every Halloween, and I know it's terrible, but I love playing it. I play it every holiday.
Have you seen the documentary we did on Night Trap?
I did. It was wonderful.
Yeah, we don't hate Night Trap.
Yeah. I mean, I probably like it to a fault.
Yeah, I mean it's great because it's imperfect.
Yeah.
So there was a question that just popped up if there's dual output on this, and so that's a big topic for the AIO. So there is not dual output on this. We decided to go with the 8200 board. Why? Because it's easier to get, and this being an open source project, at the end of the day, we wanted people to be able to buy the parts easily. And the 8220s, which are dual, or the 8220s, which are dual output, are very difficult to get, and they're difficult to get in bulk too. At least we had problems sourcing them. So we decided to add what we call an RGB kill switch. It's one of the switches on the GBS AIO. And if you're going to go ahead and output like VGA, or you're going to output component video, you can turn on that switch, and what that does is it disconnects the RGB lines to the HDMI output on the GBSC's adapter for it, and that will prevent the screen from dimming. The GBS, and I'm probably not explaining this so great on the stream, but the GBS 8200, if you have more than one output at a time on it, it dims the screen. Its video driver cannot drive two video sources at one time. So that was one of the things that we kind of came up with, like a workaround solution for it. And I know that there are some people that will want to go with the 8220 because they want the dual outputs. But we just wanted to make things the most accessible as they could be for people that are going to build this as an open source project.
Yeah, I have to say, I tried to order 8220s about 5 times before I even got one that could complete the order.
Wow.
And then, somebody else we know ordered one and got a bag of bolts in place of 8220s.
It's like such a random thing. Were they even like bolts he could use for anything?
Probably not.
Well, that being said, I'm pretty sure that our footprint will line up with an 8220, and hopefully in the future somebody can maybe help us work out directions to install one of these on an 8220, but I'm not going to make any promises towards that end at this point.
Yeah, the 8220 does require some modding to get the right video output out of it too, by the way. So it's not like just you get an 8220 and you slap it on there. You need to add a resistor and a ferrite bead and a couple other things and to get it looking right. And it's not something that John or Zero himself and I have looked into. We just decided
to actually add it to the open source specifications, but it's totally understandable that for starting out, it doesn't make sense.
We just picked one and we said, this is what we're going to build on this way so that everybody could go ahead and get it. So,
now, I mean, speaking of like dual output,
their heads don't bleed in this one.
Have we addressed whether you should have like all inputs plugged in at one time or not on this?
So you can, but they can only have power to one at a time. If you try to power more than one at a time, that's probably not going to be a good thing.
Yeah, you said it dims the picture, right?
On the outputs, if you have more than one output attached, it will dim the picture. For inputs, you can have as many inputs as you can plug something into each one of the inputs, but you don't want to have more than one thing on at a time.
Right. So in other words, if your PS2 is component and your Genesis is RGB, don't have them on at the same time.
Yep, correct.
I mean,
Yeah, the easiest way to think of inputs is like kind of like, and this is outside of our control, but they're just kind of like taking like a wire from your SNES and a wire from your Genesis and a wire from your PlayStation and twisting them all together. Like if you do that, you aren't going to want to turn on more than one of those at a time.
You know, I didn't even notice all the the little dots of around the goal in the blue until I looked up at the upscale of it.
well, there's now a 10 pound super chat from Jasper Byrne. Thank you.
Thank you.
Saying, wanted to thank you for all the help you've given me in getting my console collection modernized. Keep up the good work. Well, thank you. Thank you. It's you know, it's not easy to get all these videos done, but we've done the best we can.
Well, yeah, we've been talking a lot about how we have like several outstanding obligations, but once we do, I think you're gonna see kind of a return to like some more like personal videos next year. Oh, I almost had that.
Like more stuff that's just like, you know, I had this random thought this week, or I just like, I really want to play with this game, this system, this accessory. Like I feel like doing that this week. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
Just do a video on it. You know, which is what we were doing early in the channel, but now like we've built up like such a backlog of stuff, and like once Analog Frontiers is done, we're gonna feel a lot freer. And we have come up with a plan of attack that's gonna like basically take us from now through, you know, up until the beginning of spring, and it is going to allow me to hyper focus on getting parts 3, 4, and 5 out for Analog Frontiers. The idea is to have part 5 out by early spring right now. Okay. I mean, maybe I'll blow myself away.
What am I doing here?
Out even sooner. I'd love to. But we do have a plan in place because, you know, we gotta get that done and move on from that phase.
Yeah, I'm so ready to move on with my life.
I mean, I'm super proud of Analog Frontiers. I'm going to pour my heart and soul into it because I'm never going to make anything better than that. You know, I want to be the masterpiece that I want to be, but I'm looking forward to finishing it up for sure.
Corey, you always play good when you're on the streams, man. I know you're upset with how you're playing here, but I'm always surprised. Like when I play live on a stream, I'm terrible.
Latroy does a lot better than I do, I think. But sometimes I have my moments, but it's only in games that I like am fairly familiar with. I mean, there's plenty of times where people are like, "What are you doing?" You know.
I mean, I have a very one-track mind, so. Like, if I'm paying attention to the conversation or paying attention to the chat, I tend to do terrible in the game. Or if I am doing, you know, my best in the game, then, you know, I tend to not be paying attention to the conversation. You know, I can only keep track of about one thing at a time. I mean, Corey always seems to do really well with, like, the Genesis action games. Like, you just seem... so attuned to them. There's just something about that style of Genesis game. I don't know. You do a lot better with Genesis games than me.
So there's been some talk in the chat about the OSSC Pro, and the OSSC Pro is like in a league by itself. You're talking about, you know, that thing's going to be the Ferrari of scalers. I mean, you're talking about a $500 scaler versus essentially what's going to be a $120 scaler.
Yes, exactly.
And like, there's no way I'm going to be, and I've come out right off the bat and said, you know, don't expect the GBSC AIO to be reference quality. It's not going to be, guys. Like, if it's a really clever hack that worked out really, really well, and we've added a couple things to it with our AIO board. And I think I think it has its niche. I think for certain people, it's going to check a couple of boxes, whether that's hooking up to a VGA monitor, or whether that's downscaling, or whether that's fast resolution switching, or something that works with people's capture cards. But I think there's a lot. I think there's room for all of it. It's not the Highlander of scalers. There's not going to be only one. And I think anybody who's purchased more than one scaler already knows this, that like certain things just work better on certain scalers. And then of course everybody has that one rogue system that only works with this scaler for them, even though everybody else says it will work with everything else. So
yeah,
just kind of happens.
I mean, I think the thing to keep in mind too with the OSSC Pro is we have literally no clue when it's coming out.
Well, Marks just showed a photo of the board on.
Oh, really?
On Shmups. Yeah. Oh, it's like enormous.
Oh, yeah. I'm not surprised. I mean, people have been talking about running haven't people been talking about running Mr. Cores on it? I don't know if Mr. Core is the word, but I remember when he first announced it, people were like, oh, we could probably run an entire NES on this thing.
I'm sure there's going to be lots of cool things. I'm sure, when it comes out, it's going to do some really neat stuff. I'm excited because of the vertical game rotation. I think that's a neat feature, and there's nothing right now on the market that does that. That's commonplace. I can't wait to play a lot of those vertical games, on a regular horizontal monitor.
Yeah, I mean, but again, the thing to keep in mind with that, we don't know when it's coming out. We don't know how much it's going to cost. It's probably going to be a lot bigger. I think people should take a realistic assessment of what does the OSSC do right now, and is anything that it doesn't do right now really critical to me, and also compare other scalar devices. I wouldn't be holding out for what could be, I don't know, it could still be a couple of years away for all we know. I don't think it's going to replace the base OSSC model. I think that's still going to be a product that's going to exist because it's going to be offered at a lower cost. So
it went right through them. Look at that. It's it goes right through them. Right in
the game capture's locking up or something. Or
no, that's me. I'm doing it. I'm in the instant replay.
Oh, okay.
It goes right through. Look at that. That's a pretty good shot.
But yeah, I don't think people should necessarily be holding out for the OSSC Pro unless they think that there's something that the Pro is going to do that they just can't live without. But just be aware that you don't know. I mean,
you get it home and it might not work with your TV. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, everybody's dealt with a scaler that they thought was going to be the Highlander for all of them, and then they bring some console that they have to have with it, and then you're like, oh, it didn't work out as great as I thought, or it didn't work at all, or it doesn't play nice with my capture card. It's just one of those things that kind of happens with scalers.
I mean, the OSSC Pro, when it does come out, is going to change our lives significantly. There's zero doubt about that. It's going to be absolutely incredible. But this could be it could be a few $100s. We don't know how much it's going to be.
It's probably $500.
We have no clue.
I can say one thing with certainty. Whenever it comes out, I will still have my FrameMeister. I will still have my OSSC. I'll still have my retro tanks of the GBS AIO, and I'll get the OSSC Pro.
Yeah.
And I'm in that same boat too. I mean, like I keep saying, it's there is no Highlander. There can be more than one.
Exactly. Exactly. And everything is going to have kind of fills its little niche, which is why the GBSC is so good, is because if you need something that requires quick switching, that's exactly it. That's now I know that I have something in my repertoire that can do that in the instance that I need to record something that drops constantly.
Yeah. And you have something there for VGA output if you want. I mean,
well, as soon as I get some sort of VGA monitor.
There was another 20 peso super chat from Eric Masters, this time with a comment saying, what about using GBS with PSP or other portables? I assume it would behave much like you would expect. I'm guessing it doesn't have any like advanced like scaling features or anything like that.
Well, you can adjust the picture, like size and picture to
can you do
to some degree
adjustment to like make a PSP or something fill the screen?
I don't know if it will on the PSP,
could.
but you can definitely play with the picture and stretch it and make it fill the screen.
Oh, okay.
To some extent, there's a limit to how far it can go.
You could bring the PSP down to 240p.
For us to, it's definitely something for us to look into with our testing for sure. I hadn't really considered that because like you said, like
I'm getting crushed.
It's not really about like 4x, 5x, whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There was I'm seeing that I've actually got quite a few super chats to catch up on. Let me do that. EB Chill 2 with $5 super chat again. I bought Final Fantasy 14 after watching Mark's praise of it in one of your 2018 videos. I feel like I bit off more than I can chew. Any tips to start off right? You know, I think the thing to keep in mind with Final Fantasy 14, you know, if you don't want to get super involved with the community and all of the side stuff to do in it, you really don't have to. I play the game on a very basic, bare bones level, to be quite honest. If all you want to do, at least to get started, is stick to the main story quest, you will get enough good enough gear by just doing the main story quests. You'll mostly keep up to pace with levels. Sometimes you might need to do a dungeon again to, you know, get a few extra levels. But really, you can just play that. You'll get good enough armor. You won't have to worry about, you know, getting too involved with the in-game economy, dealing with the markets, buying gear there. The story gear is good enough. I would recommend maybe focusing on a damage dealer job. You'll have to wait a little longer to get queued up when you
doing a fake.
When you do a story dungeon.
I'm gonna fake him out here, I guess, huh?
If you choose a damage dealer job, just because there's more of them. But I think it's worth it because people aren't really going to be criticizing how you play. You don't, you know, if you're a tank, you're expected to be the leader and lead your way through the dungeon. If you're a healer, there's a lot of pressure on you. You can play much more relaxed if you're a damage dealer. No one's really criticizing how you play. But yeah, it definitely can seem overwhelming. But I think just realize that you do not have to get deep into the game to have a good experience. You can pretty much play it by yourself, almost treat it like a story-driven Final Fantasy game. You know, you don't have to do all the side stuff because I don't. There's some stuff I'd like to do, but you know, I've really mostly focused on the story.
I'm sorry. I want to say really quickly, I'm sorry if I'm boring people. Like, the only like sports games I even care about are Madden 92 and NHL 94, and they're sometimes very fun to play.
I thought, don't you like Virtua Tennis on the Dreamcast?
Oh yeah,
I like some virtual tennis. Tennis,
but I don't consider it like a real.
It's like NBA jams. Like I like playing NBA jams because it's NBA jams.
I exactly. I like NBA Jam. I like NFL Blitz, NHL Hits. I like those.
There was a $5 super chat from Whiskey Vengeance.
Ooh.
Saying, how does the 240p 480i switching speed compare to the RAD2X cables? We haven't used RAD2X cables, but you know, as far as I know, it's very much based on the RetroTink architecture, which does have 240p 480i drops. Some people have a misconception that the RetroTink solves those issues. And the thing is, I think those people just got lucky with their TVs. Some TVs respond instantly to those, but I suspect that's an exception more than the rule.
It's pretty fast. I will say that it's pretty fast.
But this like is like you might see like a little screen shift or a little flash or something, but it doesn't, and sometimes you don't though. Like if you were here earlier in the stream, or if you go watch our archives, we put the stream archives. You know, we have to say this all the time because people don't know. The stream archives are unlisted, but there is a public playlist on the, you know, if you just go youtube.com/mylifeingaming and scroll down, there is a public playlist that has our stream archives. And if you go there and go earlier in the stream, Corey was playing Dino Crisis, and I think that was the best example because there's like, that game doesn't even have I don't even know if it has a frame between the gameplay and the 480.
Yeah, it's like instantaneous.
It's super fast. That was a great example of it. But earlier in the stream, we were showing that off a lot. It seems to have no problem with that. But the Rad 2X, it might be fast on some displays, but not all.
Come on.
And it's a great product, man. Mike Cheese stuff is top notch.
Yeah, I mean, I can't, you know, stop singing the praises of it. I mean, I recommend it so often because it's just so thoroughly practical. You know?
Oh yeah,
it
totally fills a need for a lot of people.
There's something about those products, like I mean, very similar to the AV, where it's just like, you know what? It's only 720p, but it's got interpolation, and you can buy it, and it's, you know, pretty affordable for what it is. Like, you know, just certain devices like that. Like, I really like the down-to-earth practicality of them.
Oh yeah, and he's done a good job of making it accessible and making it there. Also, his cases for it are incredible. Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, I gotta put out, like, what Mike does is amazing. So I'm always envious of his stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they're totally enclosed. I love the fantastic colors that he's been doing for the RetroTink mini cases. Those are really neat. There was a 5 Canadian super chat from the importer. Thank you, saying could the GBS be used to output a Raspberry Pi via HDMI or NVIDIA Shield to a consumer CRT's component inputs and do 240p and 480i?
So Zero himself answered that in the chat, but why don't you answer it again, man?
Yeah, so the easiest thing to do, and what I tested my Switch with the downscaling capability with this, so I'm not sure how it's going to work out with 480i, because if I'm not mistaken, the downscaling is supposed to be 240p. I'm not sure if it'll actually output a 480i signal properly. I'll have to test that, and hopefully we can post some results on the Facebook group or the website about it. But you can get one of those HDMI to component switchers. I think RGB Bob recommended it on one of his videos for use with the time sleep. And then you can set your Pi to output to 480p, basically. And you can use that component, the HDMI to component adapter, and feed the input into the component inputs of the GBS control. And then you can set it to downscaling to get 240p output and enable the YPBPR, and you can output that directly to a standard def TV via component.
So can you like, if you were to, like, say, use the Nintendo Switch Online, you know, like the Super Nintendo or the NES on that, I'm pretty sure it uses a 4x scale. So you could probably force that to line up with the scan lines correctly on your TV, right?
I think it would be a stretch, because you're not dealing with reference quality video, and everything's never. So go back to like how the GBS-C scales. So you have a vertical scale, which is usually integer, which that would be good for that, and it would work out. But it's usually integer. It's not always integer. And then you have that horizontal upsampling, and between those two, I think scan lines might not work out good. Also, the GBS-C firmware recommends scan lines be only applied to 240p content.
Scanline list
because it
really
works. Want to throw them on here? I mean, I
Yeah.
know it's a stream.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah, well, but what I meant was not the scan lines from the GBS itself, but I meant like if it was output to your TV, if you were downscaling and outputting it to a consumer CRT is 240p, would that?
So it should look pretty good. But you got to remember, you're dealing with some loss of quality. You're removing some lines.
I think I think I have to switch off of 1080p though, or is it because I'm doing the full height? Maybe it's giving me like the doubled.
It's probably because you're doing the full height.
Yeah.
There's also a little bit to be said about the downscaling feature in general. So if you're outputting something like, say, the Raspberry Pi that expects your monitor to have square pixels, and you try to downscale it to a 240p signal, it's not going to look right out of the box. You're going to have to go into the settings of the GBS and stretch it to maintain the proper aspect ratio, and then you're going to
you should only
around the edges of the screen.
The truth is, though, you should only downscale content that's made to be downscaled, and that's kind of confusing for a lot of people. But like an example of that would be like, you have some old fighting game on a newer system. Those games were made to be at 240p, and they're being outputted at 480p, or and that, like we see that on the Wii a lot with like the Mega Man games and stuff like that.
Yeah. But I do wonder if you were downscaling like a widescreen signal from like a modern console that had like, borders added. Could you crop out the borders? Like,
there's a limit to how far you can stretch and tweak the picture. To some degree, yes, and you can apply an edge mask to it. So
that would definitely be an interesting thing.
There's a limit to how far it can go.
I thought of doing it with like modern HDMI systems, trying the downscale feature. I mean, I don't really know what to expect with that, but it's definitely something to test.
But you got to remember that those are outputting square pixels, where like old school 240p content didn't deal with square pixels,
right?
And that really throws. That's what Zero himself was just saying earlier.
But it might depend on what kind of settings you have within the game too. Like if you might have a 4:3 with interpolation or something like that.
Yes.
I don't know. It would be an interesting thing to test for sure.
It's an individual use case.
There was a 499 super chat from Reluctant Hero. Thank you. Saying, I'm just looking for a scaler that's as easy to use as a RetroTink and outputs at 1080p. GBSE AIO seems to be what I've been looking for.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of people, it's going to check that box. There's some people who want to tweak every little thing about the system. Like I said earlier, in the GBSC firmware with the GBS hardware, it doesn't. You can set profiles for it per se, like presets, but it's different. Its approach to video scaling is different than the OSSC, where you don't have to have this highly configured preset to get the maximum quality video. The algorithms and on the TrueView chip try to figure out what it thinks is going to be the best, and it does a pretty good job of approximating that, along with the GBS control firmware. Thanks, Corey, for trying the scan lines, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
A pain to get on there, but
I just switched over to 960p.
I can't tell because my
I can't express to you how much I tested the GBSC using this game exclusively.
Well, it's a beautiful game for sure.
And it's a 256 pixel wide Genesis game. Okay, now I got 1080p quality back on, and now I can actually the scan lines look
pretty good,
decent on the stream right now. That's actually kind of surprising. Yeah, if you're getting 1080p on the stream,
look, you can really see the tearing right here by jumping.
Those scan lines are looking weirdly good on the stream. I'm not used to
probably because it's like just showing an unscaled 960p inside the window, so it's not being resized or anything.
I can tell you with certainty that all the units I tested without the clock mod did not have that same tearing, so that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it was just timing. Like it does. It
Do
stopped
you
doing.
think the fact that this is a 256 pixel wide game changes the timing enough that would make the tear more prominent than a 320 game?
Well, from what I understand from talking to Rama, it's kind of just like hit or miss depending on like when the GBS grabs the signal. Like you can just go change a setting, and sometimes that can eliminate the tearing.
Yep, and that's why we're adding the clock mod to all of the units. Like, so, and like you guys are testing a unit without the clock mod right now. So we're hoping that this will be eliminated in future units. And we just thought that like it was a mod worth doing and worth adding for everything. And our original round of testing, we saw very limited tearing. And I think that's just a combination of the hardware that both me and Zero himself have.
There was a $5 super chat from Robert Carlson saying, feeling bullish on the Bills this year, Corey?
I haven't really been paying attention too much, to be honest. I know they started out doing pretty good, but I'm not sure if they are continuing to do very good. I haven't been paying attention.
And there was a $2 from Gaming Blows saying, "Hey Zero, what's on the shelf back there?"
Okay, well, I've got a little TARDIS sitting there, followed by a complete box VIC-20 that I picked up a couple weeks ago.
Hey, VIC-20 box. I know that photo anywhere, even at that small size.
And then I've got a SNES, the 2-chip, 3-chip variety, and then I've got an SNES Junior, followed by a twin Famicom. Actually, twin turbo Famicom.
Twin turbo? What's the difference there?
I'll show you.
Is that a stock variation or a mod?
Oh,
I didn't realize the Bills were doing that good. That's awesome.
I can't see if it's showing up on the camera well yet. Can you see the turbo buttons on that?
If I go into Discord, so it's like the new 8-bit DOE controller.
Yep.
Where they're okay. So I never realized that was like based on like a semi-official variation.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was my first twin Famicom. I picked it up on Buyee, and then like when it arrived, I was like, "Wait, is this some kind of hack?" And then I looked into it, and I was like, "Oh no, this is a more rare model. That's cool."
That's awesome.
Now, if I can just figure out how to HDMI mod this guy in a clean way, I will be happy. I think it's gonna most likely get an RGB mod instead, though.
But yeah, that VIC-20, like that's one of my favorite console boxes, just because that picture on the front is so cheesy.
Is it like a family all playing together?
Oh yeah, it's just like, the brother and sister are playing, and the dad is like leaning over their shoulder, looking like, "Whoa, that looks pretty fun." And then I think on the back of the box, there's a picture of the dad just sitting at the computer with his coffee, doing his
doing dad things.
Doing his dad things with his budgeting and his finances.
I was amazed. I got this thing. Some woman listed it on Craigslist probably about 3 weeks ago. Actually, I guess it was a little bit longer than that. And I went and picked it up. She said they bought it and it's never been used.
Oh wow!
And it was literally a refurbished model, and the on the outside of the box, the serial number matches the serial number of the unit inside. And I don't think it's been used after being refurbished.
You're sure it wasn't driven only on Sundays to church?
I can't really confirm, but
I mean, okay, so now I see that picture on the box. It's split screen with the dad, but my dad had a VIC-20 that, I mean, he wasn't, he uses computers, now for web browsing and spreadsheets and stuff, but like, back in the day, when home computers were a new thing, someone at work convinced them that like, oh, you You really need need one of these, and like I don't think he really got much use out of it at all. Like I mean, I don't think it was his thing. But I remember having it as a kid, and we had that box, and at some point it disappeared. I think we sold it at a yard sale or something. I don't know what happened to it, but like I always kind of wanted to get another, and I got it was several years ago, and I got a complete one in the box for like $20. Your box is in nicer condition than mine, but
I picked that thing up for, I think it was $100. Maybe it was 120. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't a steal either. And that's why I like today's money.
I mean, I know the Commodore 64 is the famous one, but
yeah, that's what I ultimately set out to get, because like whenever I was 6, that was the first computer I ever touched, and like I learned a couple of commands, and my buddy had one. We didn't have one. And then like I didn't touch another computer until I was like 12. But that always stuck with me, that like the C64, like I remember we were playing Nintendo. And then he's like, "Oh, you got to check out these computer games we got." And I was like, "What is that thing?" And I've never managed to get a hold of one in good working condition. I've got one in my other room for refurbishment one of these days here, but I think it's got a dead SID chip.
You don't use your Mister?
I played with it on the Mister a little bit, but you know me, like I'm always busy working on something. I want to collect the stuff and play with like the original thing someday. And then I'll probably get sick of messing with the original stuff and just use Mister because it's way more convenient.
Trey, did you beat this game?
I mean, that's I definitely had that growing up. I mean, didn't use it a whole ton, but I remember, I mean, I was like 6 or 7 years old, and I remember, following some instructions in the manual for like, here's, how write this program, and I'm like, ooh, this will be fun, and I know how to type at the time, so I just like chicken. What do you call it? Chicken peck the whole list of code. And I remember it felt like it took forever, and it didn't do anything. I couldn't get. I must have not understood how to do something.
I remember the same thing whenever I got my first computer, and I was like 12. I got like this 286, and I remember learning how to fire up BASIC, and for whatever reason, my dad knew somebody who got these Disney magazines, and they brought me a bunch of Disney magazines that had BASIC code in them that I guess you could punch into an Apple II and make it work. So without me knowing how to type, I spent like 2 hours typing this program in and then went to run it, and it promptly did not run.
I remember doing BASIC on the old Apple IIs as well as the TRS-80s in school. So
I was probably not even in like whatever mode you have to be in to like actually program code. I was probably just typing it from the.
No, you're just a kid, inputting commands and hoping that it makes the screen flash or whatever.
Yeah, I had no idea. But I mean, my family didn't have like a real computer, like a modern, Windows-based computer until '97. So that was my only exposure to that. And then, I got into HTML and stuff, but a little bit, like early HTML, very lightly. I was able to ahref and bold things, embed pictures, but that kind of ended up being the extent of my my program.
Well, I mean, I'm a proud Xennial, man. I mean, I'm like one of those people that are glad that I graduated high school before the cell phone.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I assume that we're pretty close to the same age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm 41.
Yeah, same. Me too. So yeah, I mean, I talk about that a lot, at least with friends and stuff. That I'm very happy that like our generation, like people around our age, got to live a good portion of our life before without the internet, and then a good portion. With the internet. So I feel like a lot of people that use computers, like our age, that used the computers growing up, are definitely a lot more. They just know when things are wrong. They won't believe anything that they see. Like it's so funny because I always think about it like a lot of people's parents that when I was a kid, they were like, oh, don't believe anything that you see on the internet. And then these days, they're the ones that like believe everything that they see.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember like getting to a payphone in school to call like the surf report, where today, like, you just go look that up, man, or you go look at the stream online, or
Yeah.
Wait,
you know, like that, just to, you know, to figure out if we were going to skip school or go surfing today, you know. I mean,
I don't think I've ever used a payphone in my life. Like, I mean,
man, we used them all the time. I mean, just to page people and to pager codes and everything else.
really, I mean, you know, I'm only like 5 years younger than y'all, but like, I just didn't have really a need for it. But like, you know, I was very slow to get into like smartphones. I didn't get a smartphone until I think 2011 or 2012, which was like way behind the curve.
Mhm.
And I only got it because work was willing to pay for it. Like I liked the idea that like I didn't have access to the internet every moment of my life. You know,
I curse myself because I catch myself glancing at my phone and checking like any beep that comes up. I mean, like, and I literally feel guilty about it now. And I also work an on-call job, which doesn't help. So, you know, like anytime I hear a chirp in the middle of the night, I reach for the phone.
I silence my phone at night. Like, you know, if anyone has an emergency in the middle of the night, don't be counting on me. Because it just ain't gonna happen.
I mean, I also remember though in high school hanging out at places because the place had a payphone next to it, and like as you would get paged, or people would call the payphone, you know, like just because they know that people are gonna be hanging out there, and it was a much different time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely glad to have the experience of you know, no internet. Limited access to computers, you know, for a large part of, you know, growing up.
And look at your Nintendo powers. Like, I mean, you just, things like that, like they just can't exist today. It's not the way it's done. Although I have wanted to, and if I could ever work out some deal to get the rights to reprint Nintendo powers, I would totally get on that bandwagon and I would totally make that available to people. As a matter of fact, I would even encourage Nintendo to re-release the game for the current console on the on whatever system they had at the time, you know, and then re-release that with the Nintendo Power, and you buy it in as a package. I think that would be. I think so many people would line up for that.
Well, I mean, they do that. I'd have to go out and find it, but I think I bought like a Nintendo Power style like remake for the SNES Classic or one of those mini consoles.
Yeah, but I think if Nintendo said, okay, we're going to start releasing the cover game for each Nintendo Power for this year, you know, I think people would go nuts on that.
I could actually put it on like a Switch cart, you know, you'd get Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge, and Metal
I had that poster on my wall as a kid.
I can already see it now. The scalpers will grab all of them, and we'll be like, "Damn you, scalpers!"
No, they should do it mail order, and then just everybody gets one.
Yeah.
Just like how mail order Nintendo Power used to be.
It would be insane. Like something that I've actually really a trend that I've liked, even though it's you know, we're talking, you know, re-releasing older games, but a trend I've really liked is seeing some of these new homebrew games like Dino Crisis, and also stuff like what was it that came on the Mega SG? Why am I drawing a blank on its name? The dice game.
Are you talking about the Turrican games on the Mega SG?
Yeah. They have a different one for the SG. I can't remember what it is.
Ultra-Core.
Ultra-Core, yeah.
But like a trend I've really liked is like these games that are like being released for original hardware now, to play on original hardware now. They're made for those consoles. They run, you know, to those console specifications. You know, a lot of times when a game is, you know, made on Unity or whatever, it's, you know, it's faking the capabilities or embellishing on the capabilities of
Watch this
certain.
movie about blood.
Like Octopath Traveler is
that's not
designed to
Versus
look
Blood.
like the SNES era, but it obviously
It looks
isn't.
like
Yeah, or even something more like Shovel
blood.
Knight, which is very clearly NES inspired, but it has all the layers of parallax and widescreen and all this stuff going on that it definitely could never do. But when you build something for these platforms that it has to be true to the hardware because it has to work on it. And a trend I've really enjoyed seen Dino Crisis and Ultra Core and other games like that. When companies like Strictly Limited Games does the physical
much of a movie
Mega Drive release. They're also doing an emulated release on current platforms like Switch, and I really like that because it kind of makes this weird choice. And I actually go for the current gen version instead of the native gen version, because those cartridges aren't really made by Sega. They're made with different technology. It's not like a mask ROM or anything like that. But the new one is made like it's a real Nintendo Switch cartridge. It uses the same technology as every other Switch cartridge. So it's kind of like, which one is more real? But I do like that they give people that choice. It's such an interesting thing. Man, some of the pictures on this are kind of creepy looking.
Yeah. Well, we were just watching.
You can make a good horror movie.
As you guys have been talking, the chat and myself have been watching these videos on Beethoven and Blood and Deep Sea Life.
I feel like you can make a good horror movie out of just someone browsing Compton's Encyclopedia on the
now we're gonna watch a video on
that would be
on joints.
That would be an awesome telephone game stream. You just get everybody from YouTube and just everybody has a piece for this video and then they throw their piece in.
This is too hot for MLiG right here. Look at this.
I feel like Voltar would be perfect here.
Ooh, look at these. Oof.
Yeah, where's Voltar when we need him?
This is as we approach the midnight hour. This is what the channel becomes.
I just realized
that's what's happening. Oh,
we're kind of
and you thought that just playing a violin.
There he is.
There he is. So Voltar, we were saying we should play a game, like a telephone game, where everyone picks a scene from this and narrates it, and it becomes some wacky story that everybody just telephones together.
Ooh, let's watch this video on nuclear fusion. Nuclear.
Get it right.
Nuclear fusion.
There was a $2 super chat from Jonathan G saying, I want to see pre-rendered background RPGs again. And man, I agree so much. But what's interesting is, I feel like the technology and the consoles is so good now that they probably wouldn't bother to actually make them pre-rendered. Maybe they would use some pre-baked elements, but I think they could build something really convincing looking in real time. But just stick with that style of those pre-planned camera angles. And I would love to see something beautiful, what they could do with that today, because I feel like the last time that it was really used to great effect was for an RPG at least, was the Baton Kaitos games. It was really nice to see that Chrono Cross sort of style put into a 480p game. We haven't really seen it go much beyond that, but I feel like the ultimate pre-rendered background game is the Resident Evil remake.
We're watching videos on the Paramecium because you cannot stop me with Paramecium alone.
Which game was that?
That's Forgotten Worlds.
Oh yeah, you cannot stop it just Paramecium alone. I can't believe Paramecium is in the movies section
at the Compton's
Encyclopedia. on the Sega CD. Is all this stuff on one disc?
Yeah.
It's kind of awesome. Like, is it
Ooh,
cheap?
we watched Snakes. Snake.
I kind of really want this, actually. If it's cheap.
Ooh, look at that. There's that snake. Well, it's closing.
Snakes.
I do want to announce that apparently my son said that he wants his. I was dying over this. He wants his new nickname to be Officer Diarrhea. I was dying. I was losing it over it earlier.
Officer
Diarrhea.
Does he have diarrhea or
No,
is he
he's
Cha-cha-cha.
down on people with diarrhea?
I mean, I don't know if I've talked about it
Cha
before.
cha cha.
But he's like, I want, his new nickname. I mean, I don't know if we probably talked about it before on the live stream that for a while there he wanted his nickname to be Sweet Beef. But now he's turned to Officer Diarrhea as his new.
I'm pretty sure within about 3 decades, your son is going to have like a Netflix comedy special.
Maybe. I mean, he's pretty good at coming up with this stuff.
Or a YouTube channel called Sweet Beef.
Sweet Beef. I mean, that's
Yeah, there you go.
okay.
I don't
Paul Sutton wants to
know
see
if-
turtles.
I
We're
don't
gonna
know
see
if
some
Officer
turtles.
Diarrhea could go anywhere or not.
Officer
Yeah.
Diarrhea. Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Ooh, look at
Sweet
that.
Beef-
That is a great video right there. Paul Sutton, you made the right choice because that is an awesome video. Look at that's awesome. He's just like swimming in the blackness of the CRT right now. I want to see that again. It's awesome. He's just like
I feel like that's something that you could just put on a CRT as like a video art installation.
yes. It's great when it only needs 8 colors. One final video, and then I'm gonna wrap it up for the evening.
Yeah, we better wrap it up. We're we're over time, well over time.
How about
Between the Sweet Beef and Officer Diarrhea, yeah. Come to a night.
yes, it's a way that
I never thought that showcasing the AIO would go down like
to that, and then also using the Compton's Encyclopedia to showcase it.
yes. Which it looks fantastic on. I mean,
It does.
I can't
That's what
complain.
it does. It's very clean.
Yeah, I'm all about it. We'll watch the Roman Empire. Is there any final things that you want to add about the GBSC? AIO?
We're hoping to be taking orders in probably mid-December. We hope, if production goes right. Just remember that we want to produce all of these before we start taking orders, because we feel like we owe it to everybody to have physical product. We're not going to do the take your money and hope that we get it done.
Mm-hmm.
So be patient with us, and
take.
of course, if you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, you take people's money and then you actually develop it.
Yeah, or the worst thing that could possibly happen is something happened to one, and where does the project go then? So, want to make sure that we have good stock before we start collecting from everybody. Of course, you could, if you want more information, you can find us on our Facebook group, which is the GBSC AIO Scaler group, as well as on our webpage at gbscaio.com. So look for us there.
And that, people will be able to see, we'll be able to get notifications when it finally goes up to order.
Yep, when it goes on for order. Yep. We'll likely announce in the Facebook group before any place else. So please join us there.
I'll also mention it on my Twitter account. So if you follow me on Twitter at Zero himself, you could probably get any big updates there.
There's a last minute super chat from MK Iron Fist saying I'm late tonight, but cool to see y'all share the GBSC. Well, thank you.
Yep. She put together one of the first ones that I saw, when she tweeted about it.
Oh, cool.
You know, it's like that was like my first kind of exposure to like, oh, this is ready to be put together, and it is like,
we'd heard about the
and I
custom
saw
firmware
it
for a very long time.
Yeah, but I didn't
Before
realize
that.
it was that it had the little thing that goes on it. The what is it? Isn't it Arduino that the little thing that has like the Wi-Fi, or is that just like the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, I mean it's an Arduino. It's an EPS. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think that the AIO is the way to go for people that don't want to get in the weeds and like building one, because like as I said earlier, it's very, very DIY. That it's like it's kind of scary, like at its base.
It's really not that bad, but yeah, if you're not used to soldering or not used to soldering to a chip, it can be a little intimidating, but it's not bad. I mean, if you think you have some soldering skills, I think it's a worthwhile exercise. But if you want something that's ready to go out of the box, that has all the bells and whistles and everything's kind of thought out for you, then the GBSC AIO is the way to go.
I did not build one. I mean, it's beyond my skills, at least.
It requires some nerding, as Bob says.
Yeah. But I think that's gonna do it. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Yeah. Good night. Thanks for having us.
No problem. Thanks again for having us. It's been an honor being here with you guys.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you.
And it's fun to be able to show off, like, you know, your hard work. You know, being able to test it out.
Thanks.
And I mean, I'm sure there's gonna be people that are really excited to get their hands on one.
Yep. We look forward to taking some orders soon. So.
Yep. Thanks to everybody who hung out and donated, and we will see you very, very soon. Have a good night, everybody, and a good week.
Good night.